This podcast is a part of the Podmania podcasting network. Check out podmania.co.uk to check out more of our great podcasts, features, reviews, match ratings and previews spanning the crazy and diverse world of professional wrestling. Hello guys, and welcome to the Stardom Cast, your revitalised source of all things World Wonder Ring Stardom right here on the Podmania Podcasting Network. I'm your host, Rob Goodwin, and I'm not joined by Chris. Chris has decided that he wants to step away from the podcast. Of course, he's welcome back on the podcast whenever he wants to, you know, whether it's for a big show, pay-per-view, whatever. We are still friends, so please don't worry. I think I put it on the Twitter feed that in the divorce I got the podcast is basically how it's worked out. But I am honoured. I'm honoured to be joined by my brand new co-host, a veteran of the US indie scene for 19 years. It's Matt Turner. Matt, how are you? Welcome to the Stardom Cast.
Absolute pleasure and honor, Rob. I appreciate the A-OK to put me on the podcast and to be your co-host. I'm real excited to join the team. I'm excited to talk some Stardom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we went on hiatus during the 5-star, and it was always the idea to bring the show back. But obviously, with everything that went on, the hiatus lasted a little bit longer than we anticipated. We've missed a lot in the interim, but we're going to try and cover absolutely everything today. So fingers crossed it won't go too long, but we have got a lot to fill in. But first things first, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the Stardom Cast listeners.
Sure, absolutely. I enjoy long walks on the beach. No, I'm just kidding. As you alluded to, I've been wrestling on the U.S. Indies for 19 years. I was originally trained by a very nice man by the name of Johnny Glitter. He was basically a manager for the WWF back in the late 80s, early 90s for like the smaller shows when they would come around like the northeastern Pennsylvania area. I didn't learn too much from him. Again, he was just a manager, but again, very, very nice guy. So as I was getting going, that's when the Ring of Honor was getting started, and I started going to the first few shows, and I realized you don't need to be 6'4", 300 pounds to kind of get a break in the business. So the Ring of Honor style is something that right from the get-go really intrigued me. So after going to the first 4 or 5 shows, I found out that they were doing a wrestling school trained by a certain individual you may or may not heard of by the name of CM Punk. So I signed up there, and you had to do a tryout, and I can be here all day talking about everything that happened at the Ring of Honor dojo. But the guy who really, really trained me for pro wrestling was CM Punk. I had some seasoning at the school with Samoa Joe as well, a little bit from Bryan Danielson, a little bit from Kenta. So, and then from there, I pretty much just been all over the East Coast and the Midwest doing the independent wrestlings for the U.S. So, again, I can get into this. I can be on the podcast 2 hours just talking about, where I've gone and, who I learned from, complete, just very blessed to have learned from some of the best wrestlers, past, present, and future as well.
I mean, that's just that short seg. I mean, I imagine over the next few months, years, we will end up delving right into that. But one thing I'm going to ask, and this is nothing to do with Stardom, it's just something I'm genuinely intrigued by. Best opponent you've faced?
Oh, jeez. I'm going to say it's a tie between Christopher Daniels.
Right.
And I wrestled Devin Moore, who was I think he was a CZW heavyweight champion. The reason why I always put my match with Devin Moore over is He walked into the locker room and he looked at me and he said, we were going to a 25-minute time limit draw. That's what they wanted.
Right.
Either 20 or 25 minutes. I forget. He looked at me and he said, Matt, I know what you do. You know what I do. I'll see you out there. And we called nothing. The whole match was called in the ring.
Wow.
And the match, by the end of the 20-minute time, I think it was a 20-minute time limit. By the end of the 20-minute time limit, we had everybody standing and they were chanting 5 more minutes. And I was like, I don't want to go 5 more minutes. Not because I didn't have the cardio. Believe me, when you train at the Ring of Honor dojo and you train under CM Punk, it is he based the dojo experience off what New Japan does for their young boys. So it was very, you can wrestle for days without getting tired. So it's not like I was tired to go to 5 more minutes, but I thought we just had this masterpiece of a match. And if we put 5 more minutes, it would have muddied it. And it didn't muddy it as much as I thought, but I always go to those too because Christopher Daniels was awesome. I think we were supposed to go 12 minutes. I think we went closer to 20. And it was awesome because as we were putting together the match, and I was only wrestling 3 or 4 years, and Christopher Daniels, I mean, absolute independent wrestling legend.
Oh my God, isn't he just?
And absolutely at the top of his game. But as we're putting together the match, every now and again, I'd go back up to him like, hey, what if we change this? He's like, because of this, this, and this. And he's like, brilliant. So there was like 4 ideas that he had that I changed, and I gave him the reason behind, and he was all for it. And after the match was over, he told me, he said, I'm really glad that you changed those 4 spots because I understood what you were trying to do there, and it made more sense. So I always put those 2 as probably my 2 favorite matches. But like I said, I'm wrestling 19 years. I still got a lot left in the tank, so my favorite match yet is yet to be had.
Fantastic. I mean, it's always fascinated me about when a match is never called in the ring. It's only called in the ring. Nothing's put together beforehand. It fascinates me that you can create these stories without having laid anything down. It is always fascinated me from any promotion. But sort of along the same theme of getting to know you, Matt, we have a question from our Discord, and it's MSR, and they've started with, admittedly, I never listened to the podcast. Well, fingers crossed, MSR, you are going to start listening to the podcast. But he said that I only joined because I was told there is a decent amount of Stardom fans here. How long have you been watching Stardom? What are some of your favourite matches and wrestlers? So, Matt, I think that's a great way for you to sort of introduce us to your Stardom fandom. So, how long have you been watching, and what are some of your favourite matches and wrestlers?
I've been watching consistently maybe the last 6 or 7 months, but I've been off and on for a few years. About 4 or 5 years ago when they had the giant talk of who's the best wrestler in the world, and it always came down to 4 people. It came down to Omega, Okada, AJ Styles, and he was Daniel Bryan back then, but Bryan Danielson. Those were always the top 4. And every now and again, you would hear somebody say, well, the best wrestler in the world isn't even male, it's female. And it's over in this Japanese promotion called Stardom, called Io Shirai. Well, now with technology being what it is, you can just go on YouTube and Google and just type in Io Shirai, and you would just watch her have these fantastic matches with Meiko Satomura, with Mayu Iwatani, with Kari Hojo, and the list goes on and on and on. So I got hooked on that. I would watch some Mayu's matches, some of Kari's matches, but it was kind of off and on for the past couple of years. But for the last maybe 6 or 7 months, I've really delved into the Stardom world. It's really, I'm literally backed up on pretty much every wrestling promotion. I watch a lot of wrestling. I'm backed up on every wrestling promotion because any free time I have, it's like, no, I'd rather be watching Stardom. I'd rather be watching Stardom just because it absolutely blows me away. But as far as some of my favorite matches, just off the top of my head, the 3 matches with Mayu, the one where she finally wins the red belt, where they do the white belt versus red belt. Io's match from the end of 2015, where she wins the red belt from Meiko. I absolutely love that match. That match is incredible. Arissa's, where she wins the white belt versus Momo, and Arissa, where she defends it against Tam, just off the top of my head. And then, of course, the Siri Utami match that everyone's raving about from earlier this year, and the Siri Momo final from the 5-Star Grand Prix.
I mean, a lot of them fairly similar to mine, to be perfectly honest. I mean, anyone that has listened to this podcast even once knows how much of a Mayu mark I actually am. But you mentioned the third in the trilogy of Io versus Mayu, and just the match itself, the story being told, the progression, especially if you watched all 3 matches, the progression in the way Mayu wrestles and the way that she attacks Io and the plan that she clearly has in place is just, it's fantastic storytelling. And to me, it is still the best feud that Stardom have put together, though the Julia Tam feud, the Arisa Tam feud, Hannah versus Julia as well, all fantastic feuds. And I'm looking forward to getting into more of the history of Stardom as we carry on. What I want to do then is we will go into everything that we've missed, which is a considerable amount considering we only went on hiatus in September. But we'll go through all of that. The main premise of this episode is that we're going to talk about Tokyo Super Wars. We're going to do an entire review of that show. But before we start with that, we have got a little bit of news from the world of Stardom. So just to begin with, Stardom had a strategy presentation, it was called. Basically, a big overlook of the Bushi Road era from December 2019 to December 2021. And it gave us a little bit of an insight into how the company's been doing on a financial basis, what their next steps are for 2022 and beyond. And I just thought it'd be interesting just to go through a few of these points. It was documented in English on the We Are Stardom Twitter page. But it says that after joining Bushi Road, the pandemic hit, obviously, but profits have still increased 2.5 times, with July to September 2021 being the highest sort of profit that they've ever had, which is phenomenal. They have also said that Stardom will increase local TV broadcasting and they'll expand the entertainment area to all prefectures nationwide. Also adding that they plan to hold big shows in various areas in the future. That's something that I'm going to come back to in a minute. But they also mentioned their social media. So in the period that we're talking, so December 19 to December 21, their Twitter has increased 3 times. YouTube has increased 12 times. The Stardom fan club itself has increased 10 times. And subscriptions to Stardom World have tripled. So it really is a phenomenal time for Stardom, and this year goes to show just how amazing this year has been. Going back to the prefectures for a second, there's a total of 47 in Japan, and I did a little bit of research, and this year Stardom have ran the most prefectures that they've ever run in a calendar year. They've run 23 out of 47, which is 48% of the total Japanese prefectures. So they've still got another 24 prefectures to find. So I can only assume that there are going to be a lot of Stardom shows next year, Matt. So really quickly, is there anything that jumps out at you from what I've just said, Matt?
No, I think you hit it all right on the head there, my friend. I think that overall it's growth. I mean, any business, growth is a good thing. Whether you're up 1% or some of those numbers, 40%, I think that's great. And I think one of the things that helped them was being on those dome shows for New Japan. I think that with Bushi Road having a handle in both promotions, I think that's absolutely great, especially coming off a pandemic. I mean, some of these promotions didn't survive. I mean, just 8-9 hours ago, we had to say goodbye to Ring of Honor for who knows how long. And obviously from, what I said the past few minutes, the Ring of Honor holds a very special place in my heart. So you see some of these promotions just full. To 7 months with COVID ramping back up. So to see a promotion doing well and doing as well as they are during these last 18, 19, 20 months is absolutely phenomenal. It just goes to show you just how good the talent and the booking and the writing has been for Stardom. So onward and upward with them. That's all great news.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to quickly, Andrew Woods in our Discord has asked, just as not really a question, but as a topic, I'd like to hear you talk about the language barrier. Well, everything here in this sort of strategy presentation, as they call it, is aimed towards the Japanese product. And you mentioned the pandemic, Matt. At the moment, and especially with the new variants that are seemingly constantly coming out, it makes sense to double down on the Japanese product to make it nationwide. I think a national expansion will be coming, maybe with English commentary, maybe with a slightly more friendly subscription service. But for now, I think the continued subtitles for pre-match and post-match promos will continue, but Stardom are going to continue to attempt to get more of a nationwide audience as opposed to an international audience. And with the uncertainty around when gaijin wrestlers will be able to sort of come and go freely from Japan and they'll be able to be booked on a regular basis, I think that's a wise move. I can't see international travel being anything close to normal until maybe partway through next year. Fingers crossed. So whilst we're in these uncertain times, I think the language barrier to a lot of Western fans will stay there. Obviously, this year we've had Stuart Fulton providing fantastic English commentary on some of the bigger pay-per-view shows. We're still yet to see whether that'll happen for the Sumo Hall show, but I don't know what your opinion is, Matt, but I think personally it's a good move to double down on your nationwide audience during these uncertain times.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit a home run while you're home, which obviously is what they're doing with their growth, and then try to spread out. And I wouldn't be shocked if you've been seeing it with AEW. They have had a whole bunch of New Japan guys come in, from time to time. And obviously New Japan is owned by Bushiroad, and so is Stardom. So I wouldn't be shocked in the next 6 or 7 months, depending on what's going on with the variants, you see maybe like a Mayu or a Momo or a Utami pop up, for a small run over in AEW, which I think would benefit both companies huge. But for right now, with everything going on, with COVID popping back up, the safety is the main key. Keep everything in home, and we'll just keep watching on Stardom World until hopefully they come over to the States, and maybe it'd be a nice little thing for you, maybe in a year or two if they do a little England tour.
That's the dream. That is the dream. One day I will be able to see Mayu wrestle in the flesh. That's the dream, but we'll see. Couple of final things just from this press conference call. They've also announced that there will be a Happy New Year Stardom show, which is a 12-hour stream, a 12-hour special. I assume it's not a wrestling show, but they've announced that Mayu's going to be there, Utami, Julia, Tam, Starlight Kid, as well as guests from New Japan, including Hiroshi Tanahashi, Tomoaki Honma, and then there'll be Yuzuki Aikawa, and lots of other Stardom alumni. So catch that. I believe it's on Tokyo MX, but I could be wrong. I think it'll also be streaming on their YouTube channel as well, so if you want to catch it there. And then finally, they announced this, I believe, at Kawasaki Super Wars, and then a little bit more at Tokyo Super Wars. Their early 2022 schedule, so just for the New Year Stars Tour. January 3rd, January 8th and 9th in Korakuen Hall, and then January 22 and January 29. So that's the early New Year Stars Tour. You'll notice that there is no 11th anniversary show there yet. I imagine we will have some sort of confirmation as to where they're going to run that when it comes to Sumo Hall on December 29th, or at the year-end climax, which I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, is due to take place on Christmas Day. So that'll be nice. Next point, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a sad one. Konami has announced that she'll be taking a hiatus from wrestling following that Sumo Hall show. She was absent from the company for a little while with enteritis. I know that she ended up in hospital. I think she ended up in hospital twice. And then at Tokyo Super Wars, I think she still had some sort of tube in her stomach, so clearly that's not right. She's promised that her match with Julia, which has recently been confirmed as her final match before she goes off, it will not be her final match, and she will be back. But obviously, we wish nothing but the best for Konami, especially after her fantastic UWF rules match against Syuri, which we'll be talking about later. I'm sure that it is physical well-being. I'm sure there has to be some modicum of mental well-being there as well. Obviously, Jungle is now gone, which means that both Hannah's best friends in Stardom in Konami and Jungle are both now taking leaves from wrestling. So I hope that Konami is all right. I'm I'm gutted that she's taken leave of absence, but personal and mental well-being have got to come first, Matt.
Yeah, 100%, Rob. Absolutely. It's nice that she's having this. I mean, not only is she having basically a kind of final match for a little bit, but it's against a returning Julia. So there's a lot of positives there. One, yeah, it's going to be terrible to see her leave again, especially after that fantastic UWF style match that she had with Suri, which we'll go over in a little bit. But it's nice to see that she'll have a match with Julia. And again, the most important thing is, we don't know when she's coming back. It could be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. But she is coming back. And I know she's in the big heel faction over there with Utami. I think when she comes back, whether it's, again, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, I think that Stardom would be crazy not to bring her back as a babyface, because just everything that she's overcome and just how fantastic she is in the ring, I think when she comes back, I think she'll come back to a massive pop.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Final bit of news then coming out of Stardom in the last couple of weeks is that Stardom will again be at the Tokyo Dome for the fifth time. Obviously, they were in dark matches at Wrestle Kingdom 14 and at 15, and then they've done the 2 Dome shows in the middle of this year, I believe in September, as part of the Yokohama show and I believe the Tokyo Dome show as well. But they're due to take place on the second night of Wrestle Kingdom 16. Now, the way they phrased it, and I could be wrong, but the way I've seen it, Matt, is that it's going to be on the main show. Now, Wrestle Kingdom 16 is going to be taking place over 3 nights, which is ludicrous when you consider it. But they've already announced that there is a Noah sort of crossover theme on the 9th. I imagine it would make sense for an exhibition match to take place on the main card of Night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom. Have I read too much into that, or did you sort of think the same thing?
No, I'm kind of on the same wavelength. And from when they made the announcement, from what I understand, is they want to have 9 to 10 matches per show. So that's, you can get anywhere between 27 to 30 matches between the 3 shows, which, you know what? Hey, sign me up. The more wrestling, the more good wrestling I'll take. So obviously, New Japan, what they've been able to do these past 2 years with their injuries and COVID restrictions with travel, they're still one of the top promotions that's out there. But now you're going to add in some Stardom matches. And then the last night, you're going to do Noah versus New Japan, which you'll get some absolute dream matches. When booked right, and I'm assuming that it's going to be, I don't think there's any way that anybody can really mess that up. So I think they're going to need all the talent they need if they're going to book 30 matches, and I don't think you're going to see a lot of repeats other than I know the first night it's going to be Shingo versus Okada, and then the winner of that takes on Will Ospreay on night 2. But other than that, I don't think you're going to see many repeated wrestlers wrestling more than once. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there is going to be a Stardom match. Hopefully we have more than one on there, but we'll see what happens. We'll take what we can get. But regardless, I'll be watching all 3 of those nights anyway, probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, as that's what time it usually airs over here in my part of the world.
No offense, Matt, but I have absolutely no sympathy considering AEW and WWF and whatever US promotion I end up watching airs at that time in England. So unfortunately, you don't have my sympathy with that.
I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm like a kid on Christmas when it comes to Wrestle Kingdom. Like the night before, I'll be having dinner with my wife and daughter. I'm like, oh, tomorrow's the most wonderful day of the year. And my wife will look at me. She's just like, you're like a 4-year-old on Christmas morning. I said, but it's Wrestle Kingdom. And then the past 2 years, in the past 2 years, we're able to get 2 days. Which it's exhausting, but it's well worth it. Now we're going to get a couple day break, and then we're going to get a day 3, and then we're going to get dream matches from Pro Wrestling Noah and New Japan. So it's like Christmas comes a week and change late. So to me, it's no problem. I'll wake up early all 3 of those days. I'm not looking for sympathy at all.
Well, to be honest, I found out recently that the Tuesday, because obviously I work in a school, the Tuesday, which is the first day, I'm on an inset day. So I'm at home. So that's tremendous. I get to watch Night 1 live, which I haven't been able to do in bloody years. Wednesday the 5th, I might be at home again because we're having to test the entire school. So I could be at home again. And then the 9th is a Sunday. So I might be able to watch all 3 nights of Wrestle Kingdom live for the first time since Wrestle Kingdom 12. which is extremely, extremely exciting. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that Noah show. The crossover that they could do there is tremendous. In terms of what they will do with Stardom, the last couple of times they've ignored factions a little bit just to make sure that they've got their biggest talent in tag matches, sort of throwaway tag matches. If this is due to be on the main card, maybe we can dare to dream that there'll be a title match in the same sort of ilk as Ring of Honor when we had Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly. Maybe. But the chances are, especially if there's only one match, they haven't specified yet, they've just said that Stardom will be there. The chances are it will just be one match, and we will just have either a tag or a tag and a 6-woman, just to make sure that as many people can be wrestling at the Dome as is possible, which I think is the main thing, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on then. Let's start looking at what the hell we have missed. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Jesus Christ, we've missed a lot since we went on hiatus. Where to start? I mean, me and Chris went on hiatus in September, so we went halfway through the 5-star, which means that a lot of matches we didn't get to talk about. And I'm not going to test everyone's patience by going through every single night and going, these were the results, because that would we'd have a 15-hour podcast, and much as I'm sure you enjoy hearing our voices, you don't want that.
Yeah, at least, yeah. There were so many good matches that maybe for another time, but
maybe we'll do a whole run through as a podcast one day, but today is not that day. Yeah, so we're going to have a look at the final, but before we do, is there any match that, from any of the previous night, 16 to night 1, is there any matches you want to particularly highlight, Matt, as, ones that you thought, Jesus, that's incredible?
I thought, again, we'd be here all day. I mean, there's been so much wrestling, in the past handful of months that I've watched that there's so much. I mean, if there's a demand for it, hey, we'll make the time, and if there's something you want to see, you want to talk about, by all means, hit us up on social media and let us know. But yeah, again, there's all of Mayu's matches, all of Momo's matches, all of Siri's matches. Takumi Iroha, just when she comes in from Marvelous, she's, pun intended, she is marvelous. So all her stuff, all of Tam's stuff, and Starlight Kid really. She ramped up that heel gimmick, and I think her stock rose the most out of anybody in the 5-star.
Yeah.
Would I be wrong in saying that?
No, completely agree. There's 2 or 3 wrestlers that I've got in my head as the most improved wrestler over the year, and obviously the Stardom Cast Awards are coming back at the end of this year. But in terms of most improved, Koguma, I thought, has done fantastically well over that tournament. Mina Shirakawa, I thought, grew fantastically throughout that tournament, putting on really, really good matches against the likes of Momo and against Mayu. When she wasn't being, sort of trying to overdo the comedy, I thought she did really, really well and improved hugely. And then Starlight Kid, like you said, Starlight Kid, throughout this year, she hasn't disappointed. Her matches have been fantastic. I mean, we're going to talk in a little bit about her match with Koguma at Tokyo Super Wars. Tremendous match. Even the double count out against Momo, even though, it was a double count out finish, it adds to a bigger story, and the match itself was really, really good. So I think they've done tremendously well with Starlight Kid and her booking over the last couple of months. In terms of matches that I would, and again, I'm going to do this quick fire because you don't want to be here for, a day and a half. In terms of matches that I thoroughly enjoyed from the 5-star, you've got Utami versus Micah from night 1. That main event is still to this day one of the best limb-selling matches that I've seen. I thought Utami, who is low-key one of the best sellers, if not the best seller in the company, did a fantastic job, and Micah was shark-like focused on that arm. Absolutely tremendous. And then Momo versus Mayu from night 1 was tremendous. You mentioned Iroha versus Tam from night 10. Utami versus Azumi. I could watch Azumi wrestle all day, but her match with Utami from night 11.
I'm sorry. I just want to cut you off 1 second because you just jogged my mind. The Utami Azumi match. There was something they did in the beginning that literally it's the smallest thing. It's the smallest thing that blew my mind, and I kept rewinding it. They locked up, and Azumi started pushing Utami back a little. She switched her hand position and then whipped her off the rope. And I thought that was the smallest, coolest thing because, like, when you're putting together a match, and usually you always, we'll start out with some chain wrestling, and then the first high spot is something whipping off the rope. They didn't do any chain wrestling. She just backed her up, and then the momentum of how she switched her hand and pushed her off the rope, I literally rewound it 3 or 4 times as if it was like Shibata doing a head kick to Ishii from the G1, 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah. I was blown away, and it was something so small that she did, and I thought, my God, there's stuff going on in Stardom that I've never seen in pro wrestling before. And I've been watching pro wrestling 35 years, in Japan, Mexico, England, America. I watched so much wrestling, and it literally blew my mind. Just something so small that I just appreciate so much. So I'm sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
It's absolutely fine. She's 18 as well. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Azumi. She's absolutely tremendous. And I mean, there's only a certain amount of time before we see her go for one of the big belts. Surely. You will learn this about me, Matt. My predictions are very rarely, if ever, right, as proved by me predicting that the 5-star would be won by Julia and the Tag League would be won by Blue Marin. So, I am shocking at predictions, but I do predict that Azumi is going to be going for that white belt, maybe even that red belt, before... I'm going to go before July. I'm going to stake my non-existent reputation on it that is going to happen. We're going to see Azumi in that big title picture at some point. I don't think she'll win, but she is definitely deserving of a shot. Let's move on then to the 5-star final itself, which was night 17 from September 25th, 2021 from Ota Ward City Gymnasium, Tokyo, with an attendance of 1,539. Now, I'm not going to go through every single match because, again, that will be folly. But the series of matches that led up to sort of the final, I do want to quickly talk about. So the first match I want to talk about, Matt, is the red block match with Mayu Iwatani defeating Starlight Kid with the 2-step dragon suplex in 6 minutes 19 seconds. The reason I want to talk about this is, are you surprised that they were only given 6 minutes? Do you think the 6 minutes worked with the story they were trying to tell? What did you think of this match?
This goes to show you that you do not need 10, 12, 15 minutes to tell a story. Now, Grant, do I want to see Starlight Kid and Mayu wrestle 20 minutes? Yes, absolutely. But I remember when I was reading the results, and everyone said this match is 7, 8 minutes, what have you, and it was really good. And I was like, how are they going to jam-pack all that stuff in there and tell a story? And they did it, which just goes to show you how good the two of them are. And I think everybody pegged Starlight Kid, winning early on because it would knock Mayu out of the tournament and then it would continue their feud. But it was the complete opposite. So I think there's still so much story to tell. Obviously, even just by the end where Mayu was trying to shake her hand because it just breaks her heart that her big protege she left and she went to the big bad Oita Tai and she just, please shake my hand, and she wouldn't do it, and then she gave her a hug and then basically kind of pushed her down, and you just know, just because the match was so short but yet so good, there's so much more that we're going to see for the two of them. And I think Stardom is doing a really good job with their long-term storytelling, and I think you'll see that feud play back out probably sometime here in the spring of next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Fast-paced, furious. It's the first time these two have faced off as well. So the last thing we want to do is effectively spaff up this feud, up the wall. We want it to be carrying on. And as you mentioned before, the added stat that Starlight, the whole reason that she didn't go back to Stars after that Gauntlet match is because she wanted to overtake Mayu. She didn't want to be in Mayu's shadow for, the next however many years, which is how she felt she was getting. She wanted to do her own thing. And the added stat that not only did Mayu stop Starlight from winning the block, but in the process, she also overtook her on a tiebreaker. So she ended up finishing above Starlight, which shows that Starlight, no matter what she's done in the process in a Oita Tai, she's still not on Mayu's level. And that kills her.
Kind of like Tam as well.
Kind of like Tam as well.
the 2 draws she's had with Mayu this past year. She just, she even putting that in that promo where they had the 30-minute draw a few months ago. She's like, I can't, I'm getting there. I just can't get there. And there's so many different stories that Stardom can tell that literally has us watching. Hence their growth. Not only is the fantastic wrestlers, but it's the fantastic stories that they're telling and the programs that they're doing. So obviously it's working, and we're all intrigued to see how everything plays out.
I'm not going to talk about Azumi versus Ruaka because despite the fact that Ruaka has been lumbered with a statistic, I don't know if you know this, she was looking to avoid being the first person since Hiromi Momura in 2016 to finish the tournament without a single point. But unfortunately, she did lose to Azumi, and therefore is the first person since 2016 to finish bottom of the block with 0 points. But I thought her growth as well, she was someone we didn't mention. I thought her growth throughout the tournament was really, really good. She's something completely different to the other children on the roster, completely different to Rina, Hina, and Hanan. She's sort of in that Natsukatora ilk, that bruiser ilk, which I think works for her, definitely. And I think that improved throughout the tournament. I mean, the match you can take or leave. It's a standard singles match, but I thought she did particularly well. What I do want to go to is the next match, which was another blue block match, which saw Unagi Sayaka on 9 points defeating Saya Kamatani with the Taiji Data in 11 minutes and 53 seconds, which eliminated Saya from the tournament as she was sitting joint top at this point with Syuri. What is your opinion of Unagi, Matt? As a whole, how do you think she's grown? Do you think she's been pushed too much? What is your overall opinion? As she seems to be another divisive figure on that roster at the moment.
You kind of touched on a little bit with the other Cosmic Angel, Mina. She improved so much during the tournament, and you saw Unagi doing it as well. I mean, it seemed once the Cosmic Angels were formed, the 3, Tam, Unagi, and Mina, it seemed like it was kind of just Tam and her friends. But you've seen the Unagi and Mina grow so much. A little overpushed. I mean, maybe, who's to say? I mean, that's like one of the worst things Stardom is doing. So be it. But I thought she had phenomenal growth in here, and she's only going to get better working with alongside in 6-man tag matches, as we've seen. With them being the Artists of Stardom 6-man tag champions, she's only going to get better working alongside with Tam, or as we saw a few months ago, working against Tam. Working against Mayu, working against Takumi Iroha. I thought their match that they had at the 5-star was really, took me by surprise of how well it was. She's only going to get better because she's literally working with the best women wrestling company in the world. So just watching her progression over the last 5 or 6 months has been a breath of fresh air, because it's always nice to get, you can rotate fresh people into the mid card or the upper card or whatnot. And this match she had with Saya, and Saya's another one. We talked about Starlight Kid as far as, almost main event level talent. And Saya's right there as well. And again, she's working alongside the best with Queen's Quest as well. So I thought this match was fantastic. I think what they're doing with Unagi is terrific. I think that you may see her go pretty far in the Cinderella tournament next year.
I'd be surprised if she's not in the final. I'd be incredibly surprised. Now, I'm on record as saying that I'm not a Unagi fan. I felt like she was pushed too much too soon, and that really damaged my opinion of her. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But this match, it was entertaining, told a good story. Her quest for respect and redemption, because these two faced off in Yokohama. You spoke about how it was Tam and friends. That was quite literally what Queen's Quest was saying. And Saya beat her. So for Unagi to come out of this having beaten Saya and effectively obliterated her chances of making the 5-star final, I thought was, again, good long-form storytelling. It also goes to, 9 points for Unagi. You think she beat Saya Kamatani, she beat Momo, and she beat Azumi. They are really quite high-profile scalps, especially that of Tam, and we'll see where that goes later on in the show. But they clearly have a lot of faith in her. Now, do I think that faith is misplaced? There's a moment that we are going to be talking about later on in the show where I finally see the star potential in Unagi. And we'll talk about that later on. I don't want to dwell on it too much now. But I do agree with you, Matt, that she did have a good tournament. She did have good matches. She had some clangers, but for the most part, there was a higher percentage of good matches in this tournament for Yanagi than there was poor matches. Moving on then, we had, I don't want to really talk about this one either, though this was a good match. Again, blue block match with Micah defeating Konami, which again eliminated Konami from the block. That left our two sort of block main events, if you will. The first one was Syuri and Takumi Iroha ending in a 20-minute time limit draw. Now, we laugh on this podcast about how many time limit draws Stardom book, and it's almost like they have a raffle at the start of the show to decide which match goes to the time limit draw. This one makes sense, though, for me. I thought this was a great match, Matt.
Yeah, I agree, and I understand. Like I said, I just got into Stardom a handful of months ago, and there's a lot of time limit draws, and some of them that make sense. And I understand because a lot of wrestling over here in the States, they really don't do time limit draws. Now, we saw a great one on AEW with Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson. But yeah, this one made sense. And I kind of figured going into it that this was going to go to time limit draw because I kind of saw where they were going with the finals.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this was great. And I know they do a lot of count outs as well. Again, if it makes sense, I don't care what it is, as long as it makes sense. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but this one was one that definitely made sense. And these are two people that are two ladies that have similar styles. Very hard hitting, very submission based, very good selling. There was a great spot where the two of them were putting each other in knee bars and just kept going back and forth. And then finally they couldn't figure out what to do for the counter, so they just both grabbed the ropes. I thought it was a spot that was so simple but made so much sense.
Absolutely. This is easily one of the matches of the tournament for me. Brutal strikes, emotion, desperation, and that genuine big match feel. The big thing for me here was the progression in Syuri throughout this match. You've had this cool, calm, collected character, this person violently taking apart Iroha. And then as the match progressed, you could see this dream slipping away from Syuri, and you could see her progressively getting more and more desperate, and it becomes less about the brutal strikes and the careful dissection of a limb to just desperate pinfall attempts. And that's fantastic. The fact that you've got this woman, this powerful woman who's pretty much powered her way through this tournament, laying out these devastated screams as the bell rings because she thinks that this moment that she almost had, because don't forget, the big thing here is that Syuri wants to win that red belt to cement her legacy, to prove that she is as strong as her mother. It's a powerful incentive. So to see that potentially slip away because she couldn't get the job done, it's such a subtle thing, but I loved it. And that's what really tipped this over the edge as one of the matches of the tournament for me. Really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And not only that, but the fact that she is relying on Utami to lose to make it through to the final, fantastic storytelling. Yeah.
Her big rival.
Absolutely.
So it's amazing. Yeah, Siri does so great with the facial selling, not only from the defensive, but the offensive, if that makes sense. It's one thing if you hurt your knee and you're in a certain sell position, you can see the emotion in the face, but then when you fire back up and you just see that you're fighting through the pain because you want this win so much. And then not only that, but then if I win this match, I still got to go through another match to win the final. Just brilliant storytelling, brilliant facial selling from Siri all around. I mean, even throughout this whole tournament, especially on this final night, it really was her finest hour.
Couldn't agree more. We move on then to what would be the final match in Blue Block, effectively the block final, with Tam Nakano defeating Utami Hayashishita in 14 minutes and 32 seconds with the Twilight Dream, which eliminated Utami and put Syuri through to the to the 5-star final against the Red Block winner Momo Watanabe. This was another fantastic match, Matt. We had a series of maybe 3 matches where all of them just seemed to get better and better and better. Fantastic match again.
Yeah, I think this was one of the best overall wrestling shows of the year. I mean, this from top to bottom was great. And again, we're only covering kind of the back end of it. But yeah, this is, again, brilliant booking. If you have your white belt champion and your red belt champion, essentially your two most important champions in the same block, you're going to book them in the final match on, other than obviously the finals, in the final match of your block. So, because it's basically your two biggest stars, your two most powerful people. So I thought that was brilliant booking by having it going on last, obviously before the final. And the match was incredible. I mean, just the way that both these ladies have been wrestling all year, and even Tam, just as good as she is, she just keeps getting better. And Utami as well. I mean, the two of them, and not only that, but like their entrances when they come out, especially Utami with the Queen's Quest flag and her robe and the mask and the rose, she just is a star before she grabs your attention before she even gets in the ring, and that's when it even gets even better. And Tam is on the same wavelength. I can watch these two wrestle a broomstick, and I'd pay to see it. But yeah, this match was fantastic, and this even gives, if Tam drops that white belt sometime down the line, she could say, well, at the 5-star, I pinned the champion. So, this gives Tam some clout in the near future to challenge for the World of Stardom title. So again, great booking because there's so many different avenues that they can do just to keep the top of the card fresh.
Absolutely. And the fact that Tam's selling is at times a little inconsistent, but here it was unbelievable and had the crowd invested from the word go. It was fantastic. And the fact that Tam reintroduced the violet screwdriver to illustrate just how much she needed to win, she wanted to win, just fantastic. The fact that Utami losing sent Syuri through as well, as though these two are intrinsically linked this year. I just love that. I love that. I thought that was really, really good. Easily Tam's match of the tournament. Possibly Utami's as well, though, as I stated at the top of the podcast. I don't think she's had a particularly bad match all year. She's worker of the year for me. Hands down. Hands down. This takes us to the 5-star Grand Prix final, which saw Syuri, the blue block winner, defeat Momo Watanabe, the red block winner, with the Ruen. Let's go with Ruen. Why not? In 18 minutes and 54 seconds. Right off the bat, Matt, this got full marks for me. This is one of two matches all year that got 5 stars. I loved this match.
I'm a big fan of the little details when it comes to wrestling. And what I liked is Syuri just had this 20-minute banger with Takumi. And they're doing these backstage interviews literally as they're in gorilla position, getting ready to go out. And there's Julia, her stablemate, probably the person that probably would have won the 5-star had she not got injured. I mean, that's speculation for another day, but there she is, icing her down just as she's supposed to go out. And she just wrestled one killer, and then she's going to wrestle another killer. And here we go. This was not only this was probably either this or the Momo match with Mayu was match of the tournament, and then probably even match of the year, the Syuri Utami match. Probably I can put all three of those 3 matches, Utami Syuri double knockout match, the Momo Mayu match from earlier in the tournament, and then the final. I can probably, if you ask me any other day, what's my favorite match from Stardom this year, you get 3 different answers. You ask me on a Monday, it'd be this one, Tuesday, it'd be this one, Wednesday, it'd be this one. And the fact that Syuri had a 20-minute match just 20 minutes prior, and they were able to go this long. And not only that, but like these kicks that these two are throwing. Not only that, but coming from a personal standpoint, from someone who's been wrestling a long time that throws a lot of kicks, that when you're kicking somebody, they have to feed a proper way. Your opponent has to be a proper way for 2 reasons. 1, you want to keep them safe. And 2, you want it to look and sound as hard-hitting as possible. And the way that Momo and Syuri feed for each other's kicks, and they're kicking back and forth over and over again, and just feed, kick, feed, kick, feed, kick, feed, kick. You're like, my God, can this match get any better? And then at the end, Syuri just literally empties the tank. She doesn't have much left. She just goes, back and forth, and then finally is able to hit a couple buzzsaw kicks, and then her finisher dropping Momo right on the head. Absolutely. Yeah, this was, if I'm doing the Wrestling Observer, 5-star rating, which is huge over here in the States, this is, 5 stars, 5 1/4, whatever. This was an absolutely perfectly, brilliantly wrestled, hard-hitting match from the two of them.
The fact that you mentioned the little details, and you mentioned the interview in, effectively gorilla position. Syuri comes to the ring without her robe, doing absolutely nothing to disguise the emotion she's feeling. She knows how big this match is. There's no pomp, there's no circumstance. She knows that she is behind the 8 ball from the very get-go in this match because Momo wrestled on the pre-show in a 3-way match. So she's effectively not wrestled. Whereas Syuri is off the back of this time limit draw against someone who was literally beaten her from pillar to post for 20 minutes. And then that's compounded by the fact that Momo comes into this with a chip on her shoulder by the fact that Syuri alluded to Momo not being herself right at the start of the year in January when they battled for the SWA belt and finished her off by breaking out this brand new submission move in Gembu. And you know Momo hasn't forgotten that. You know that Momo is going to make sure that she destroys Syuri for that. And we see this partway through the match where rather than beating her, Momo wants to beat Syuri at her own game with the strikes, grinding down the resilience of Syuri as though to teach her a lesson, which is fantastic. You watch Syuri, who is running on sheer emotion and fatigue at this point, quite literally running on empty, and watching Momo vindictively trying to take this dream from her. And then eventually the adrenaline kicks in and Syuri eventually manages to get the win and then bursts into tears with this exhausted jubilation from the very moment that count of 3 falls. You talk about peaks and troughs in wrestling. You talk about the perfect match sort of taking you on this roller coaster of emotions. And even though once this was the final, you could sort of see where it was going. You knew that Syuri was going to win. You didn't care in this match. You did not care because you were so caught up in the emotion of this match. The fact that yet again, Momo Watanabe has bottled the big stage, and let's face it, that's going to be playing into a storyline we're going to be talking about shortly. And the fact that Syuri, all of this stuff has just sort of erupted from her as she wins. Perfect storytelling. And overall, like I said before, one of the 2 matches this year that I've given full marks to. A fantastic, fantastic match, Matt.
What's the other one? Is it the Utami?
It is Utami and Syuri. There are a couple that have come very, very close. Maya versus Yoshiko from Budokan came really close. Julie versus Starlight came really close. And then there's another match, actually, that we're going to be talking about shortly that came really close as well. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So that was the 5-star. So from this point, Syuri is actually carrying around a physical briefcase for the first time. We haven't seen that in Stardom before. And she will defend that alongside her SWA belt for the remainder of the year until Sumo Hall. I'm not going to lie, Matt, and I don't know how you feel about this. I'm not a huge fan of the whole concept of defending your sort of title win because it undermines the tournament a little bit, and especially with Syuri holding the title as well, it did telegraph some of those results. Now, don't get me wrong, her match with Azumi was fantastic. Her match with Konami was fantastic. But they were never going to win. You're not going to have your main event of Sumo Hall as, Saki Kashima versus Utami, irrelevant of how good Saki is in ring. Did that take away from those matches a little bit for you, or are you okay with them? I don't like it in New Japan, to be honest, when, you've got the destruction shows, those B shows where for a fact that whoever is holding the briefcase isn't going to drop it, apart from if you Kota Ibushi. But I don't know. I don't know if it's just me or if it's something that's shared by other people. What's your opinion on that?
I totally see your point of view. Obviously, they're taking this completely off New Japan against again the Bushiroad thing, and maybe it works in New Japan. Maybe they've noticed, hey, we've been able to get more ticket sales if Okada defends his briefcase against Tamatanga. And again, they never pulled the trigger on it up until last year where they did the one with Jay White and was completely took everybody off guard. Again, I'm a pretty easygoing wrestling fan. If you just give me a good wrestling match, again, I know that she's not losing this briefcase. I know that Okada wasn't going to lose, the briefcase to the one match that he lost during the G1. But at the same time, it's like, hey, if I go to a steakhouse and I order steak, and they're going to bring me steak, that's what I wanted. So it's no surprise. So it's no surprise that there's next to no chance for this person to lose their title shot. But I'm fine with that. If I'm fine with that, where I'm 99% sure I know the result, just give me a good wrestling match. Not only that, but then you have some of these undercard people that you're bringing back up, into the main event. Like, ooh, maybe, this person has a chance to win the briefcase. And then they have a good 15, 16, 17-minute match with Sherry. And then it's like, oh, maybe that's somebody that we can push into the new year. I completely see a lot of people have the same sentiment you do, Rob. They do not like the defending of the briefcase. Yeah, because it does undermine your G1 win. It does undermine your, 5-star win. But for me, if I get good wrestling matches out of it, I'm fine.
Fair enough. Can't say fairer than that. We move on then. So the next tournament, and the last tournament of the year, save for the Osaka Super Wars, which we'll talk about later, is the Goddess of Stardom Tag League. Now, unlike the 5-star, we're not going to go into any great detail with this. I just sort of wanted to run through a couple of the matches that really stuck out to me on a quality level, and then we'll talk about sort of where everyone sat in the blocks, and then we'll talk about the actual final match, but that's really it. And again, Matt, you might have found some matches that were a little bit better or a little bit worse. But for me personally, ones that stood out from the October 30th, Blue Marin, which was Mai Iwatani and Rin Kanekura, defeating Ponytail and Bushido, which was Shuri and Maika, was really, really good, that main event. And then we also had on night 4, which was November 4th, the time limit draw between Aphrodite and Fukuoka Double Crazy, Hazuki and Koguma. That time limit draw was a really, really, really good match. And then a match that wasn't actually part of the tournament, but was actually probably match of this run, was just a rudimentary tag match between FWC, Koguma and Hazuki, and Queen's Quest, Utami and Azumi, which was fantastic, November 6th. It was actually just a fantastic tag team match. Aside from those, Matt, we had the final, which was held at Korakuen Hall with 725 people, the highest Korakuen attendance that Stardom have managed to pull in this year, on November 14th. So, red block, we had Aphrodite defeating Himipoi, with the German suplex in 9:54, which eliminated Himika and Natsupoi. But also, we have that overarching storyline of the lack of cohesion and the tension between Himika and Natsupoi. What have you thought about that as the tournament's gone on?
I mean, anytime you have a tag team, you're going to have some dissension from here and there. And not only did they do a great job with this throughout the tournament, but Stardom does a great job on their YouTube as well, where they're showing like the backstage stuff. I mean, they're always pushing out content, and it just adds to the storyline. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, it literally comes up like a text message. You just press it and watch the 2 or 3 minute video. So I thought they did a really good job with the dissension between the two of them. It's not only that, because not only are they going through the tournament and they're getting close towards the final, but also they're 2/3 of the six lady tag team champions, the Artists of Stardom Championship. So it's like you wonder how that's gonna play into place there. So it's always nice to tease a little dissension or have a little dissension, because then it's like, are they going to have a matchup? Is this person going to go to another team? Is this person going to get kicked out? Or Sherry and Julia, who are basically the leaders of DDM, are they going to get involved or try to make some peace? So it's always interesting if it's done right, and anything that's done well, it can be interesting. And I think they did a good job playing up the fact that there were some misfires between the two of them in the tournament that was costing the matches.
Absolutely, and it actually comes to bear later on in our podcast, which we'll talk about in a minute. This actually forced Red Block to go to a tiebreaker match between the two people who were top on 7 points. Hazuki and Koguma and Aphrodite. Hazuki and Koguma coming out on top to be the first team to the final. We then had 2 more matches in Red Block. We had Koko Kaido, which was Starlight Kid and Ruaka, defeating Ponytail and Bushido, which was Micah and Syuri, via disqualification, which left Micah and Syuri at 7 points, which effectively meant that the winner of Momo and Azumi, last year's winners, and Blue Marin, Mayu, and Rin Kadokura, the winner of that match would go through, and that ended up being Momo AZ, who, again, as a tag team, aside from maybe Azumi and Utami, are, for me, and ALK, obviously the tag champs, are my favourite tag team to watch. Their cohesion, their teamwork is tremendous. Absolutely tremendous, Matt.
Yeah, this was the first time I really seen them team up. And then it was the first round match where they had the time limit draw, the first day match where they had the time limit draw with Starlight Kid and Ruaka. And then you wonder how good that match really would have been, because I believe Konami was supposed to be Starlight Kid's tag partner. Do I have that information correct?
Correct, yes.
And then you wonder how good this tournament would have been, because I'm assuming had Julian not got hurt, Julian and Suri would have been a team as well, considering the fact that the tag champ. So this whole tournament was really good, and it could have been even better. But this was, like I said a couple seconds ago, this was the first time I saw Momo and Azumi team up, and I was blown away of how good they team up. And then I went back and watched a whole bunch of their tag matches from last year's 5-star, and I put them on a level as far as tag teams that I enjoy. Currently in wrestling, I put them on the same level as FTR and the Young Bucks. That's how much I enjoy them together, because they're just the stuff they do, the tag team stuff they do, their timing, their ring positioning, the way they play off each other. I mean, you have Momo as just this suplex queen, and she just throws these stiff shots, and Azumi's really good at the submissions and the high speed stuff, and the way they mix their psychology together. It blows me away just how good they are. And I thought overall they were the best team of the tournament, and right behind them was Aphrodite, the other two from Queen's Quest, Utami and Saya. So, I mean, just goes to show you how well that Queen's Quest team is, because in my opinion, from match quality, I thought Momo Azumi was 1, Aphrodite was 2, and then the eventual winners were 3. So, but I'm completely blown away with how good Momo and Azumi are. And the fact that it might be over within a week's time, it's heartbreaking.
It absolutely is. We're definitely going to get into that in a minute. We've got the final then, which saw the Red Block winners of Fukuoka Double Crazy, Hazuki and Koguma, defeating last year's winners, Momo AZ, with a German suplex in 15 minutes and 28 seconds. This was match of the tournament, hands down. So if you want to go and watch one match from this tournament, watch the final. I mean, you probably could have anticipated that it would be the best, but considering that this was the third match that FWC had fought on this night, and it's the second match that Momo AZ had fought on this night, it was just incredibly fun to watch. I mean, with both teams having wrestled more than one match, you can be forgiven for thinking, they're just going to take it a little bit easy. It's only tag league. But there was no point where you thought, Jesus, they're taking it a bit. That final exchange between Koguma and Azumi is fantastic, where Hazuki looked as good as I've ever seen her in this match. Not just since her return, which has been phenomenal, but also just in general. She looked fantastic. She had that aura again. It was just a thoroughly enjoyable final. And, you know, when you think about it, they were the only team with a real story emerging, to be honest. So for them to win made sense. But, you know, a win over the previous champions. Who said booking wrestling was difficult, Matt, eh?
Seems like they do it so well. It seems like what's going on in Stardom, they do it so well. And for me, again, I'm kind of new to Stardom on a monthly, or whenever they drop shows. And it's refreshing. It's refreshing because I try to be a very positive person, try not to bury anybody, and in wrestling, but it seems like there's so much bad writing over the last 4 or 5 years, especially here in the States, of certain things going on in wrestling, that you see what Stardom does, and they just have long-term storylines playing out that all make sense. But yeah, I agree. This was by far match of the tournament, the final. which is, you kind of want to put your best match on last. And that's kind of what they did with the 5-star, and kind of playing off the 5-star. Siri had to wrestle twice to go through, where here you have these two teams wrestling multiple times on the final night, which, hey, again, two of the, top teams in the tournament. Sure. I'll pay my $15, $20, $30 a ticket, and I'll sit in the front or second row, if I'm a fan there in Japan, and watch these two teams wrestle a whole bunch. Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting my money's worth.
After the match, FWC affirmed that they are in fact going to challenge ALK for the Goddess of Stardom Championships, as you would assume, having won the tag league. And at the moment, that match hasn't been announced for a particular show. Obviously, both Julia and Koguma are in title matches at Sumo Hall. Oh, sorry, no, Julia is against Konami in her leaving match at Sumo Hall. So we haven't had a card announced yet. Obviously, with Osaka Super Wars happening in the interim, we haven't had a card yet for the year-end climax. Now, last year, we saw Black Widows beat Priestley and Konami taking the belts off Aphrodite in the main event. So there is a high probability that the match between ALK and FWC will be the main event of year-end climax, which I am more than happy about. That is going to be a fantastic match, Matt.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of when tag team wrestling, again, really good tag team wrestling, is the main event of shows. Yeah. I mean, we've seen it. Ring of Honor over the years has just had a banger of a tag division, and it makes sense that a lot of times they'll put their tag matches on last. And it's about putting your best match on last to make sure that the fans leave happy. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. You're trying to make the fans happy, so they come back, so they buy your subscription, so they buy your merchandise, so they go home and they tell their friends, hey, you need to see this wrestling. Yeah, so if that's the main event of the year-end climax, not a problem. I'm sure we might watch it.
Maybe we'll see.
It's a possibility. If you fans ask nice enough, we'll do it. It's Christmas time.
I mean, to be honest, you look at, aside from the Yokohama Budokan show in April, where it main evented over the Red Belt, which is still a huge bone of contention for me, you look at the times that the Goddess of Stardom tag belts have main evented, those Road 2 shows, effectively what they are. You look at ALK versus MK Sisters, which was a tremendous match. You look at ALK versus Aphrodite, which was another tremendous match. They always put on really, really good matches, especially recently in this division. So I'm looking forward to that, especially if somehow Momo AZ stay together, which, again, like you alluded to earlier, I don't think they will. That's another team that could then go for those belts again. I mean, Momo AZ versus ALK was another fantastic match earlier on in the year. So, yeah, very, very excited. However, there were other things to come out of this match. So throughout this tournament, and in a match that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on, Starlight and Momo are currently embroiled in a feud, with Starlight basically saying that Momo is spent. She's done all she can in Queen's Quest. She's not the leader. She's been lost in the shuffle. Basically everything that the fans also think about Momo. Hashtag Momo is buried. So what she proposes... Initially, she said you should join Awida Tai, and Momo said no. So what is going to happen at Osaka Super Wars on December 18th will be that they will be an Awida Tai versus Queen's Quest match, and the loser out of Starlight and Momo will join the rival faction. There's also the added stipulation that if Starlight loses, she is going to lose her mask. Now, for me, that sort of telegraphs that Momo is going to Awida Tai, especially now that we know Konami is taking a leave of absence, Matt.
Yeah, I kind of have a armchair booking scenario here, and I'm going to kind of lay it out.
Please do.
So I think, I mean, and we're trying not to be long-winded because we're going long enough, and we apologize. We still didn't even get to the main event yet of the podcast. But basically, here's what I think might happen, could happen, and I think would be cool to happen. I think majority of us think Momo is going to Awida Tai. Now, we've seen when Awida Tai wins these matches where they get a member of another faction, they almost like kidnap them. It's almost like hard to watch. So I think what will happen is obviously Awida Tai wins, but who's going to try to kidnap Momo? She's a killer. So I think as the match is over, Momo, the Queen's Quest lose, she's got to join Oita Tai. I think she looks at Queen's Quest. I think she looks at Oita Tai, and she leaves. She leaves, and then we have, 11 days between this show and the end of the year show, right?
Yes. Yeah. 11 days
exactly.
18th.
Yeah, 18th to the 29th. So I think they did just announce Momo's match for that show, but I think Momo goes radio silent for that week and a half. You don't hear from her on social media, nothing. So I think at the end of, and I'm sure we'll preview it sometime coming up soon, but I think at the end of that show, you have Azumi win the high-speed title, you have Saya win the white belt, and Utami retains over Suri. At the end, the three remaining members of Queen Quest are all celebrating, and then Oita Tai comes out from the crowd, and they jump them. All 84 members of Oita Tai are, they're obviously minus Konami. I think as soon as Konami's match is over, they show her, getting in the car, and she's gone. I'll see you when I see you. So they jump her. They jump them. Obviously, Utami just had this barn burner of a match with Siri. Azumi wrestled earlier in the day. Saya just wrestled Tam, an hour ago, whatever. So they're beating them down. And all of a sudden, the lights go out, and we hear some new music. The lights come back up, and it's Momo. And she's all in purple and black. Oita Tai leaves the ring. She hits Azumi with the buzzsaw kick, takes her out. Picks up Saya, gives her the B driver, takes her out. And then she picks up Utami, and she gives her the Peach Sunrise. Is that the name of her finisher? Yeah, Peach Sunrise. Oita Tai gets in the ring. They all celebrate. She's the new leader of Oita Tai. She takes the red belt. She holds it over Utami's head. That's how they go off the air. We leave more questions than answers. Then I think you film a YouTube segment, because obviously I think they're going towards Utami and Julia, which they kind of hinted towards at the Super War show, which we'll get into. I think you film a YouTube segment where Utami goes to Julia, like, look, hey, you're next for this title shot, but I got to get revenge against Momo. And Julia says, fine, but I get the winner. So now you build up to one of your first big shows of the year. You have Utami versus Momo for the red belt, and then the winner takes on Julia somewhere 3-4 weeks down the line. So you have Momo's first match and a Oita Tai member. She gets a title shot. Now, we talked about long-term booking. Let me ask you this, Rob, because you've been watching Stardom longer than me. Okay. Do you think that this has been a year in the making, considering the fact about this time last year, Utami beat Momo, and Momo wouldn't shake her hand? So do you think this is a year in the making that they're building up this heel run for Momo?
She's the longest standing member of Queen's Quest, so she's due a change. I think the fact that she's seen Utami sort of pass her by, lap her, if you will, people don't view her as the leader of Queen's Quest. And the fact that whoever feuds with Momo cites the fact that, you've done all you can, you lost, you spent, the rest of the unit don't need you. I think they are building towards that, absolutely. I mean, it makes perfect storyline booking sense, and especially as, almost a year to the day. I think Osaka Dream Cinderella was December 20th last year, I think, when Momo lost to Utami. So you're looking at almost exactly a year to the day. Momo's challenging again, a completely new guys. Makes perfect booking sense. Of course, this could all go to pot if Suri takes the belt from Utami.
Sure, and that's something that I won't complain about either.
No, absolutely
but again,
not.
to kind of get off my soapbox. So I think this is a year in the making, and I think what you do is Momo's first singles match in Oita Tai is against Utami for the belt, and Momo goes over. Momo finally wins the belt. It took her turning to the evilest faction in all of Stardom. And this, you can completely shake up the roster because you have a completely different Momo. You have, first of all, a heel Momo, and you have which will make her more aggressive. She'll be cheating a little bit more. She'll be using outside interference more. And you have a red belt Momo, which is a Momo we've never had before. So now you have you guys set up the Julia match. You can set up a match with Azumi. You can set up a match against Saya, even though I think that they may be champions, but you don't do it first belt match. But at the same time, it gets the high-speed belt over more. The fact that the high-speed belt champion is challenging for the red belt, and the same thing with the white belt. So then you can even have Siri say, you could build her back up. Say, well, wait a minute, I beat you at the 5-star Grand Prix. If in the final, I want my title match. And it could get to a point where Oedo Tai is just completely running roughshod over Stardom, and I would maybe even flip a Micah or a Himika and have them join Oedo Tai as well as like one of the bruisers, one of the enforcers. And you can do like a backstage segment where it's like almost like a mafia style segment where you have the leaders of the family's factions. You have Mayu, you have Tam, even you could bring Takumi in from Marvelous. You have Julia, all sitting at a table somewhere saying, look, we don't care which one of us wins the red belt. We have to get that red belt off of Oedo Tai. We have to get it off Momo. And you can do, obviously, I think they're going to eventually crown Julia. I think you do it the way that they were going to. I think you build this up. If it's going well, you build it up, have Momo have the belt for a year, have Julia win the 5-star next year, and then have her beat Momo in the final show of the year to, truly crown her. I think that would be a great way to kind of just shake things up for the year.
I don't hate it, Matt. I don't hate it at all. And it gives Momo a direction, which she is in so desperate need of. It opens up a plethora of fresh feuds, fresh matchups, matches that they've said, Stardom, that they want to run more big shows. Well, that opens up the possibility of far more big matches. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
We'll see what happens. And even I know we talked about it earlier. What if in 3 or 4 months, Kari comes back and on her first show, she beats Mayu. And then at the end of the show, Utami retains against, I don't know, Tam. I'm just throwing it out there. And then Kari comes back and was like, I got to get I'm a legend here. You have disrespected that belt more than anybody. I got to get that belt off you. And then she goes over Kari. I mean, you just keep building and building and building. Again, this can all go awry if Sherry wins, which is a very good possibility. So we'll see what happens. It's exciting.
Absolutely. That sort of leads into a question that I wanted to ask about free agents, but we'll talk about that at the end of the show, just because I'm conscious of the fact that we've still got quite a lot to talk about. And we're not going to run through the 10th anniversary grand final Osaka Dream Cinderella show from Osaka Joe Hall, but I just wanted to talk very, very briefly about the 2 main events. So it was running first time that a Joshi promotion in 26 years, I believe, has run Osaka Joe Hall. So an enormous achievement for Stardom once again in this year, where they just seem to keep knocking it out of the park in terms of records and history. 1,441 in attendance. Couple of notes before we get into sort of those last 2 or 3 matches. Rucker usurped Unagi as the Future of Stardom champion with the Freezer Bomb at 8 minutes and 43 seconds. Starlight Kid defeated Fukigen Death with the Black Tiger Pile Driver in 5 minutes and 46 to retain her high-speed championship. Donna Del Mondo retained their Artist of Stardom championships, defeating the Queen's Quest team of Momo, Saya, and Azumi with the Michinoku Driver 2, which also saw the fantastic entrance of Azumi Mysterio. We had the Hazuki return match, where she defeated Koguma. Really good match. And then we had the first of Syuri's SWA and World of Stardom Right to Challenge certificate matches, where she defeated Saki Kashima with the figure 4 leg lock. And I found out actually this was due to, I believe, it was an apparent tribute to Keiji Muto, who defeated Nobuhiko Takada with the very move on that day back in 1995 during the New Japan and UWF war, which I thought was a really subtle but really, really, really nice touch. The 2 main events then of this show saw the Wonder of Stardom Championship match, Tam Nakano versus Mayu Iwatani, ending in a 30-minute time limit draw. Now, I saw quite a few people talking about this one. And again, slightly divisive, possibly, well, not possibly, because of the result. What was your opinion, Matt, of this match?
I enjoyed it. I mean, it's Tam versus Mayu. I thought they left a little on the table which goes to show you they're going somewhere else with it. You can't really give everybody everything just if they're going to go somewhere with it. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to the rule. The first Okada Omega match, certainly they didn't leave anything on the table on that one.
Absolutely not.
But it made you want to see more. So, yeah, there was some stuff that they could have done, but again, I absolutely loved it. If I was going to grade that one on a scale of 1 to 10, probably a 7.5 or an 8. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, Tam's promo at the end where she was just so disheartening, like, I can't accept the draw. I can't accept the draw because I need to beat you, because I need to be on your level, which really, very few people are.
Yeah, I was conflicted about this match on several counts, partly because, it's Mayu versus Tam. The in-ring was fantastic, as you would expect. And in fact, if we were talking about this as a 20, 22, maybe even a 24 5-minute match, we'd be talking about this as a match of the year candidate. But I felt like it was stretched to the 30-minute time limit draw. And I feel like the feud between Stars and Cosmic Angels has been, what's the best way? It's suffered because of Mina's injury at the start of the year. And then it was put on the back burner again because of the stuff with Awida Tai. And then it was sort of... they can't seem to keep it sustained. And with that, I feel like the feud has suffered a little bit. But the promo at the end from Tam, it's what we talked about with Starlight Kid. Absolutely desperate to usurp Mayu, to pass Mayu, the icon of Stardom, yet she can't do it. And more frustratingly, it's not because she can't beat her. Sorry, because she's lost to it. It's because she can't beat her, which, if anything, is more frustrating than an outright loss. I just wish, and this is with hindsight being 2020, I suppose, I just wish that there'd have been a little bit more of a build to warrant this 30-minute time limit draw. Does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe if they did go 20, you're right. Some of it was stretched. Everything you said, made sense. And obviously, it's your opinion. And we're all entitled to it, whether you like the match, love the match, or disliked it. Yeah, that does make sense. And the injuries, going back and forth between the two factions, it's kind of a start-stop. And it's tough to gain momentum when you have that start-stop. But then again, look at who the leaders of the factions are. I think once it gets going again, hopefully it's full speed ahead and we could finally see where this is going.
Absolutely. I see this being another match, and I do see Tam eventually usurping Mayu. I don't think it'll be for the white belt, because I do agree with you. I do see Saya overcoming her defeat at Yokohama in July to get the belt. And I do see that being an absolute banger.
Yeah, then if Tam gets a victory over the icon of Stardom, that propels her to, challenge for the red belt. That would obviously give her, an argument that, hey, I deserve a shot at whoever, whether it's Momo, whether it's Suri, whether it's Julia, whether it's still Utami. That would give her, again, she beat Utami in the 5-star, Grand Prix in the final night. So she would have, 2 legs to stand on. Like, hey, I beat the icon of Stardom and I beat the champion in the tournament. So maybe after she does lose the white belt, maybe they start pushing her towards the top of the card for the red belt.
Agreed. Then the main event was the World of Stardom Championship match. Utami Hayashishita defeating Takumi Iroha with the BT bomb in 30 minutes and 52 seconds. What was your opinion on this, Matt?
Docker, another great match between these two. Maybe a little long, maybe 3 or 4 minutes too long, but I mean, that's my biggest complaint about it. Still excellent match. Again, if I'm doing the 1 to 10 rating that you like to do on this show, I'm going to give it a solid 8. Great match. These two, I mean, they can have a great match in their sleep.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't without fault, certainly, and I think the main fault for me was the same main fault for you. It did go a little bit too long. I think if it had gone 22, 23, it's the same complaint, really, that I had about the Mayu and Tam match. I think the length sort of killed a little bit of the heat, but again, these two served up in ring a fantastic match. And it's a more than solid addition to their respective 2021 back catalogues. I think it goes to show the year that Utami has had that this is a good match, yet it's possibly one of her weakest defenses. And that's not to say this is a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it's a good match. But Utami's defenses have just been on a different plane this year. And she pulls out another superb one at Kawasaki, which we'll be talking about in a minute. And again and again and again, we've got the new theme for Utami, which, admittedly, the first time that I heard it, I wasn't a massive fan, because I was such a huge fan of Utami's old entrance theme, and I'm sad to see it gone. But the more I hear it, the more, the choral chanting, the general huge atmospheric feel of it, it does make her feel like almost like a goddess riding down to war. She's got that final piece that makes her feel like the final boss of Stardom. She's got I hate to make the comparison, but she's got that Okada-esque champion feel. She truly feels like a champion. There was just one pose where she was wreathed in that golden rose behind her. You'd got the sort of towers of flame next to her. She's holding the flag, the rose, and it all fell into place, and she just feels like the biggest thing in the company at the moment, which she obviously is. I don't know about you. I don't know which one you prefer, or even if you care, but she felt so huge in this.
No, your views there, Robert, spot on. I mean, in the Okada reference, I never thought of it until you said it. I'm like, yeah, absolutely dead on. I mean, Okada's the guy they've been pushing there for almost last 7-8 years, and I mean, to the moon, and rightfully so. And I think it's almost the same thing with Utami. She's got the complete package. Not only is she fantastic in the ring, she's good with her backstage promos. She's good with her in-ring promos. And the entrance is something so huge. She has so many different levels on that entrance, like we alluded to before, with the rose and the mask and the robe and the flag and the pyro. And then you're throwing in this new music. That anytime something is new, I mean, we all liked her old theme. Anytime something new, it's going to take some getting used to. But I think once we get used to it, which, maybe some of us are, it is like, yeah, she is, the goddess of Stardom. She's the biggest overall star in that company. And again, she's only, 22, 23 years old. I think she's only been wrestling for 3 or 4 years, which is just like Okada, like just absolutely insane, just a prodigy. And I mean, it's going to be crazy as long as she stays healthy, where she's going to go in the next 4 or 5 years in pro wrestling.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see that, because now that she's had this belt, she truly feels like one of the 4 pillars of Stardom. And,
yeah,
she's on the same level as a Mayu, as a Julia, as a Syuri, as a Tam, and she feels like that final boss, which I feel like towards the start of the year, Stardom were worried she didn't feel like, but she's proved so many people wrong. And like I mentioned, her defense against Takumi Iroha was potentially one of her weaker defenses, but was still a fantastic match, which, if anything, is a huge compliment for how good her reign has been, for how good the match quality of her reign has been.
Yeah, I think maybe if this match was her first defense, I think maybe we'd be looking at it maybe a little bit better, just because it was like, okay, this was the first step and only gets better. The Momo, the Syuri, the Micah, and so on and so forth. But yeah, the fact that you thought that, and I kind of agree, this is one of her weaker title defense, and by no means is that a slight against her. Just everything else has been so good. So good. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I think she's going to be at a point where she's going to be like a Mayu, where if something happens, or somebody gets injured, or if they try to put the belt on somebody new, it's not working, it's like a safe bet, kind of like New Japan does with Okada, Tanahashi, or All Japan used to do with Misawa. It's like maybe this run's not working, or Kawada would get injured. We'll just put the belt on Misawa because it'll work. And I think that Mayu and Utami are probably the only 2 people in Stardom right now that if somebody gets hurt or there's an emergency that they need to put, the belt on somebody to either pop a rating or something they're doing is not working, they can go with Mayu. And now I think that they feel pretty confident they can go with Utami.
Absolutely. Completely agree. So we move on then to the final pay-per-view before we talk about Tokyo Super Wars, which was Kawasaki Super Wars 2021 from November 3rd, 2021 in the Todoraki Arena, Kawasaki, with an attendance of 906 people. We're not going to talk about every match, pretty much like the Osaka show. We're just going to sort of dip in and out of the title matches and then look in a little bit more detail at the top two. In other notes, Rucker retained the Future of Stardom Championship against Lady C in a shade under 5 minutes. We also had Mina Shirakawa defeating Saya Kamatani and Maika, which will be important later on. We then had Starlight Kid going for Momo Watanabe. Their high-speed championship match ended in a double countout. This was all stemming from their face-off at Korakuen Hall on the 17th of October when Starlight baited Momo into making a high-speed championship match, which initially Momo refused, but Starlight sort of needled her with barbs about being a coward and running away, questioning if Momo really was the leader of Queen's Quest before uttering the word Shopai, which was like a red rag to a bull for Momo after months of enduring that word from B. Priestley. So she agreed to the terms, told Kid that she would win her crappy, to put it in quotation marks, belt, and then give it right back to her. Fantastic way of building the belt there. But the match itself, though not your stereotypical high-speed bout, I thought it worked very well on a storyline level, so I'm willing to forgive that, and I think it's the first step in a wider story, which obviously we'll see at Osaka Super Wars. SWA Undisputed World Women's Championship match in the 5-star Grand Prix Right to Challenge certificate match. Syuri defeating Azumi with the White Tiger in 13 minutes and 22 seconds. What did you think about this one, Matt?
Yeah, I think Syuri does is excellent. But to kind of just go back to Momo, Starlight Kid, I kind of just want to touch on that a few seconds. Yeah, the way that the match was built, and they're building towards this Oita Tai versus Queen's Quest match, I think this was a fantastic first step. I mean, and one of the best double countouts that, anytime that we read, it's a double countout, maybe we kind of cringe. But, I mean, it was the way that it was set up, the way the match was built. I think it was the perfect finish. The fact that the two of them were brawling and they're pushing the refs around, they're pushing the seconds around, and they're kind of just going back and forth where they're trying to get their hands on each other. Even Momo ripping at Starlight Kid's mask, showing a little bit more heel tactics, a little more aggressive Momo, as if she's not aggressive enough. But this is like super, I'm coming for blood. Momo. I thought it was, again, maybe this is the seeds planted to a heel Momo. So, and this might be, one of the first steps. So, I thought that was excellent. But yeah, the SWA match, I thought was done very well. Anything Syuri does, I'm always key to watch.
Absolutely. And again, Azumi, she felt like she belonged in that title match. It wasn't a fact that you thought, she's a bit out of depth here. Whereas you look at the one in February, over that Valentine's Day weekend at Korakuen, she felt, well, it was very much playing into the story of the match that she was out of depth, and, once all the high-speed stuff had been spent, she was running out of ideas, whereas here, it felt like a far more even matchup, even though Syuri was eventually far too much.
Yeah, she does a good job. She did a good job, like, almost trading submissions, where you can tell it's like, that puts her submission game on a different level. The fact that she was not quite there, but just a level below of what Syuri was. I think Azumi's submission game is very underrated, and I think that Syuri did a good job selling for her submissions. She did a good job feeding for her submissions, and in turn, that makes Azumi a bigger threat. So when Syuri gets the win, it makes her win even more important because she made Azumi look really good with the submissions, considering the fact that Syuri is a legit shooter, with that UFC MMA background. So I can't wait to see what these two do in 2 or 3 more years when Azumi's she's constantly getting better. So I'm excited, hopefully, that they wrestle a few more times. I thought it was a fun match.
We then move on to the semi-main, which was the Wonder of Stardom Championship match with Tam Nakano defeating Unagi Sayaka with the Twilight Dream in 21 minutes and 31 seconds. Now, I mentioned earlier on that I find Unagi bland. I always have, and over the course of the year, I don't think any of my complaints or gripes have been baseless. I do think Unagi's been pushed too much too quickly, and whilst there have been clear improvements, I do think she needs to up her offense and improve her storytelling, and I do sort of still find her a bit bland. However, all that being said, She enters the arena here and she feels like a goddamn star. And in truth, this is probably the first time I can see what the Stardom booking team and higher-ups have seen. I guess it's amazing what the addition of a samurai sword can do. Apparently that makes you look like you're a true main eventer. Who knew? But overall, much as I'm ambivalent towards Unagi, this was a tremendous match. And Unagi, it wasn't not all Tam. Unagi brought in this match. Jesus H. Christ, those headbutts, Matt.
Yeah, well, I mean, Unagi's, from what I've seen, her best match. I don't think you'll disagree.
Not all,
and
completely
I think this is, again, it wasn't all Tam, but the same part, and we'll get into it with the Tam's match with Mina here in a little bit. This is Tam being a professional and taking care of her own. She knew that if she had to give Unagi and she gave Mina both great matches, it only raises their stock up, and they're in the same faction together. So, yeah, Unagi, she had her A-plus game here. No doubt about it. Her best performance to date from what I've seen. But, again, it takes two to tango. And this is just another reason why I think Tam needs to be pushed in the next 6 or 7 months towards that red belt, because she makes her opponents look so good, and in turn makes her look good. Everybody she wrestles, she makes better. And she's taking these, for lack of term, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, these mid-card wrestlers, and she's putting them in the semi-main event against the second biggest belt that the company has, and making it look like, there's a chance here that they may flip the belt. And again, Unagi, A-plus effort, but a lot of this has to do with Tam just being a goddamn professional, and just being so good at her job by making underneath talent look so much better.
Could not agree more. What I will say is, one huge issue I had with Unagi, especially, even so far, even as recently as just before the 5-star, was, and it was the reason I prefer Mina to Unagi. Unagi has one way of sort of selling and being a babyface in peril. It's to shout, and that's it. Whereas Mina has the facial expressions down, the storytelling down. Here, Unagi's selling and facial expressions were infinitely ahead of where they have been. And that is half the battle for me. I'm immediately invested in the fact that Tam brutalizes Unagi in order to show that, you're not on my level. I'm willing to give you the shot, but there's going to be no quarter given here. We're stablemates, we're friends in this ring. I'm going to beat you, and I'm going to show you what it takes to be a champion. I'm going to show you that you aren't there yet. And Unagi played her part perfectly here. It's the first time in a long, long time, probably since, the tag match with Julia, and we're talking back in July, February time, where I've been thoroughly invested in Unagi's character. And her offense is hitting with a crispness it's been missing for months and months and months. And like I said, those headbutts, Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm squirmish about shoot headbutts since the whole Shibata and Okada thing, but even so, good grief. The fact that Unagi's willing to do that to herself immediately upped the sort of legitimacy of this match, and I can't give it enough credit. Mina comes out and challenges afterwards. Now, I'm really happy that Mina has an opportunity at the white belt on a big stage. And I do think her improvement has surpassed that of Unagi from where they were. However, a justification for challenging essentially boils down to, hey, look, I won a match and pinned the Cinderella tournament winner, which, for someone who spent a significant amount of time this year as Cosmic Angels nominated pin eater, doesn't quite cut it. But I do want to reiterate that I am pleased that Mina's been given a shot, because I do think she deserves it. We'll see how that match goes when we talk about Tokyo Super Wars in a moment. Main event then of the Kawasaki show was Utami Hayashita defeating Hazuki for the World of Stardom Championship the World of Stardom Championship with the BT Bomb in 25 minutes and 24 seconds. What do you think of this, Matt?
Well, it's kind of like, hey, welcome back, Hazuki. Here's you're back. Oh, hey, we're gonna give you a title shot. Yeah, it was kind of quick. It was like, geez, do you want to build her up first? But it was a great match. I mean, what to say? It looks like she hasn't missed a beat. It really, really doesn't. I think that she's performing great. And again, I know we're beating a dead horse here. Utami, you can put her in a broomstick and it's gonna make sense. I thought the match was terrific. I thought Utami did a good job. Again, you're talking about these champions giving the challengers a lot of offense, and that in turn only makes the challenger better. Which, if they do a return match, hey, that's just good for business. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And Utami did a great job giving Hazuki a lot of offense. And then in turn, her comeback made more. And, she always hits, 2 or 3 big moves towards the end where it's like she's just emptying out the tank of her offense to try to get the win. And I thought this match was terrific. And again, something that I'm looking forward to, down the road, they do a rematch somewhere.
You said about Hazuki sort of strolling in and getting a championship match. And I agree with you. There wasn't really a build, but however, it played into the story of this match so well because her return to Stardom has been, by and large, a huge success. Her return match with Koguma and their subsequent tag team was greeted with a lot of praise. However, there is the undercurrent of the unhealthy circumstances surrounding her retirement back in 2019. And, the good grace that she has with fans by simply being Hazuki isn't shared by the roster. There's horrible rumors flying around that a lot of the reason Jungle Kiona has sort of taken a step back and decided to leave Stardom is due to them rehiring Hazuki. I don't know how much of that is true, but there we are. At the tail end of Osaka Dream Cinderella, Hazuki challenged Utami for the red belt, and though the champion agreed, she is quick to remind Hazuki that she abandoned the company and cannot simply stroll back in and expect everybody to drop to their knees in praise. And the fact that that's then mirrored by the press conference and then again at the start of this match by the point-blank refusal by Utami to show any sort of respect to Hazuki or to even acknowledge her, it's a simple story. It's a perfect story as they go through this match, and Hazuki is just beaten down but keeps getting up and asking for more. And eventually, Utami has little choice but to acknowledge her and give her that congratulations, that welcoming handshake at the end, that acceptance and that respect. I thought the way we got from point A to point B, again, one of the better matches of the year, and this is actually one of my matches of the year from a pure in-ring standpoint. I absolutely loved it. Was it spoiled a little bit by predictable booking? Maybe. But in the moment of watching it, I was completely engrossed from start to finish. The eager for respect to Hazuki, being desperate for respect from the dismissive Utami, just tremendous. The fucking stomach-clenchingly big moments and edge-of-your-seat near falls, some of those horrendously scary bumps that Hazuki was taking on her neck. I was just completely invested in this match, Matt.
Wow, you liked it that much. I'm going to have to go back and watch it. I only watched it once right after it came up on Stardom World, but I think maybe tonight or tomorrow I'm going to have to go back and watch it. So, I mean, I thought it was good, but I didn't give it that high praise. But maybe I'm missing something. So it gives me an excuse to go back and watch it.
You'll have to let me know what you think of it, because now I'm worried that I'm going too big on it.
No, hey, you can again, wrestling is everybody's opinion. I don't like these. I mean, social media is toxic to begin with, but I don't like these. Why do you think this person's good? Or I can't believe you like that match. You can like anything that you want. It doesn't matter. I can have somebody on Twitter say, I think Carmella is the best women's wrestler in the world, and I watch Stardom. Hey, great. That's your opinion. It's all subjective. So I'm going to, and I, obviously respect your opinion quite a bit. So I'm going to have to go back and watch it. But, if the booking, if who's going to win the match, if it's predictable, to me, that doesn't hurt the match at all. That's another thing that I don't like. I saw somebody tweeted at me the other day that it was predictable that Adam Cole was going to beat Wheeler Yuta on Dynamite. That's what's terrible about AEW. The booking's so predictable. I'm like, of course Adam Cole was going to beat Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta's up and coming, and Adam Cole's a big star. So people were upset that they knew who was going to win the match. Like, to me, that does not ruin it at all. At all. And I think which makes this main event coming up at the end of the year between Siri and Utami so good, because we really don't know who's going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. There are certain matches where I'm like, nah, it does. The predictability does make it suffer slightly. And we're actually going to get into one of those matches as we go into sort of the main event of our podcast. But for the vast majority, like the Adam Cole Wheeler Yuta thing, the whole point of that match is to give Wheeler Yuta some exposure, being in the ring with Adam Cole. That's the whole point. That's absolutely fine. I don't mind that at all.
See, Rob, you get it. Wrestling could be so simple. Wrestling could be so people overcomplicate. He gets it. Like I don't. My wife, who's only been watching wrestling since we first got together, she gets it than most people I know for 20 years. I'm like, how do you see this? But half the people I talk to don't. She's like, it's not that difficult. People.
That hard.
Yeah, like Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. That's basically what it is. But I'm definitely gonna have to go back and watch it. So. Thanks for giving me an excuse to watch this Hazuki versus Utami match.
Not a problem, my man. Let's move on then to our Stardom Tokyo Super Wars review, November 27th, 2021, from Yoyogi National Gymnasium number 2, Tokyo, in front of 1,119 fans. We started with the Future of Stardom Championship three-way match with the champion Ruaka defeating Waka Tsukiyama and Mei Sakurai with the freezer bomb in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Now, I thought this was going to be a handicap match, and I'm not going to lie, Matt, I'm really glad it wasn't, because it was a really relatively interesting dynamic for an opener.
Yeah, not only that, but you have the heel as one person, and you have the two baby faces as the two. So usually when you do a handicap, it's usually the two heels onto the baby. So that was kind of when the match started. I was like, ooh, this, and three-ways are hard to do anyway. I mean, three-ways are tough to do just because there's an odd number of people. 4-ways are easier, 6-ways are easier, 3-way tags because you have the even amount of people. But I thought this was good for what it was, and I think the main thing that they did was they kept it short. It only went, 4 minutes and change, so there really wasn't much room for error. I guess my only big complaint was you can tell that the three of them are still kind of green because there was a lot of lack of selling, especially in the facials, and especially what happened post-match after the match as well.
Yeah. I am a little bit of a bigger fan of Tsukiyama than I am of Sakurai. I feel
Agreed.
Yeah, she seems to be a lot more wooden in her offense. She seems to it's like that person who, you're rehearsing a play and you've got that person who's got all the character expression down, they clearly know the lines, whereas you've still got that one person who's still in the process of learning their lines and is just bothered about getting the lines out as opposed to thinking about how they're going to say them. And I feel like that's where Sakurai is at the moment.
Lack of confidence and more in-ring work with better people. We'll just give her there just more reps. I think eventually she can get everybody in Stardom or anybody in wrestling can get to where they want to. You just need more reps, and you need to be in there with somebody better than you that's willing to teach you.
Absolutely. Utter hell then breaks loose, Matt, as a masked attacker bedecked in the infamous Momo mask that fucking terrorized every school teacher for about 6 months, attacks all three women with a sledgehammer before being chased off by Starlight Kid. The internet has been rife with rumours as to who could be behind the mask, from Mirai Mayumi from Tokyo Joshi Pro to Marvelous's Makoto Shinoda to, and I cannot stress how much I laughed when I read this, Kairi Hojo.
The only person that I know a little of Joshi wrestling outside of Stardom, so if it is anybody, I hope it is Kairi, just to bring her in, but I think it's a kind of a dumb way. You can't bring one of the icons of Stardom back in a different way, but at the same time, I'm not much of a complainer. I'll take it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting just to see who it is because it is getting some buzz on the internet, and any masked attacker gimmick is always fun to kind of speculate who it can be.
Of course, and the chance of it being anyone of, no offense, any real stock, and them coming in to challenge, the Future of Stardom Championship,
yeah.
Kairi is not going to be bothered about Ruaka, Waki Tsukiyama, or Mai Sakurai. She's just not going to be. Plus, the body shape is completely different. Do you know what? It's fine. It is a way of getting someone else into the company. It's fine. I mean, we had seen this attacker briefly at Kawasaki Super Wars on the pre-show, but, I'm excited by the prospect of Rucker and Hanan is basically what's come out of this match. Their match at Sumo Hall should be a little bit better, I feel. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally agree. And again, this might have been just the way just to get the three of them on the show. Again, 4 minutes didn't hurt. And then he kind of had two angles afterwards. You had the setup for the match at the end of the year. Then obviously, who is Momo Mask? And then Starlight Kid chasing off the person who is Momo Mask. So again, is that going to be, a feud? Again, Stardom, the way that their booking has been this past year is it looks like they have more than one avenue to go down somewhere. And I think any avenue they pick, I think it'll be the right avenue. I don't think there'll be no wrong answer.
We move on then to a tag team match with the team of Momo AZ, Momo Watanabe, and Azumi defeating Unagi Sayaka and Lady C with the diving double foot stomp in 9 minutes and 36 seconds. We've talked a lot about Unagi. I'm not going to, as you put it, flag a dead horse, but, her offense is now hitting with the crispness it so desperately lacked. She's continuing to add other unique elements to her arsenal, things like the monkey flip on Azumi out of the corner. You've got just the charisma she oozes as she does strut to the ring now. And she does feel like a star, which is great. I'm looking forward to seeing the build of her next year. But Lady C, who, bless her, I think she's 1-78 this year in matches. It's not exactly the greatest of stats, but it's always fun to check in and see how she's doing. And in terms of being a rookie, I think she does the basics very, very well and is becoming significantly braver in what she attempts.
The key thing that you said there is 78. 1-78. My quick math skills tell me she's had almost 80 matches this year. So that's a lot of matches for a rookie to have really anywhere. And again, I can't stress this enough. You only get better by reps in the ring against better people. Stardom clearly has the best female roster in the world, bar none. Nobody can tell me any different. But so she's in there almost 80 matches, whether it's tag, 6-man, or single. She's only going to get better. And I noticed that Lady C, she does every match she gets a little bit better. It's the little things. It's her timing. It's her ring positioning. It's her selling. It's her offensive selling. It's where she needs to be in the ring. Even on my notes, I wrote down that she did a giant Baba clothesline. And when she did it, I wrote it down, and the commentators did say, I could have sworn I heard them say Baba. So I'm like, I wonder if on the Japanese commentary that they put over, she did a giant Baba clothesline. Anytime anybody does anything All Japan, especially from the 90s, it gets a huge pop for me. So
easy man,
and of course, yeah. I mean, that's my favorite era of wrestling. The King's Road from 90 to 99 is my from All Japan's my favorite era of wrestling. So I thought that not only did she do those little things well, but I got a big pop for me, but she did the giant Baba clothesline. And again, you're in there with one of the best overall tag teams, in my opinion, in the world. Momo and Azumi. So I thought this match was fine. It didn't go too long. It served its purpose. It did what it needed to do. It's just that if this was the last tag match between the two of them, it's kind of a weird note to go out on.
Yeah, it's certainly a sad note, but again, we'll see where it goes. Basically, it boils down to this being a pleasing little sprint if you've got a spare 9 minutes. It's always fun, like I say, to check out where Lady C is. 6-woman tag team action then next, with the Stars team of Mayu Iwatani, Hazuki, and Hanan defeating the Oedo Tai team of Saki Kashima, Fukigen Death, and Rina, with the vertical drop brainbuster in 8 minutes and 48 seconds. There is an outstanding Saki and Hazuki exchange that takes place with them sort of roll-up exchanging, reversing the Hazuki straddle into the Kishikasai. It just seamlessly. It's a thing of beauty. Apart from that, it's solid yet unspectacular, I think, is the way to describe this match, Matt.
That's literally the first note I have is the chemistry that the two of them had. The second note is it was solid, it served its purpose, and my third note, which is, again, I don't like to be negative, but the most negative thing about this match, not enough Mayu.
Yeah.
Not enough. They could have put her in here for 30 minutes, and I probably would have still complained it wasn't enough. I do like the launching drop kick that Stars does It looks like she's going to kill somebody in the corner, and then she takes almost like a German suplex bump on her head on the way down as well.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed they've been doing that. I noticed that they've been doing that a lot lately in these 6-man and 8-man stars, 8-man tag. It's like, man, they just launch her right through whoever that poor soul is in the corner. And then poor Mayu, she takes the brunt of it as well because she comes down like she just got dragon. That she just took her own dragon suplex. So I wouldn't be shocked if you don't see that if you don't see that in the next few months. It's like, yeah, let's do something else. There's 5,000 other things I can do. Let me just do a moonsault on the outside into 50 people. You know, that might be safer.
I mean, let's be honest. One thing Mayu is not known for is self-safety. So it really does not surprise me. I don't know if you've seen, there was something that was gifted incessantly for years and years with, it was Threedom, so Kairi, Io, and Mayu, and they used to do it, this dropkick, and they absolutely launched her into Chelsea Green. And oh my God, how Chelsea Green is still alive, I've got no idea because...
Wait, I don't mean to cut you off. So wait, that was Chelsea Green that ate that?
That was Chelsea Green that ate that in that gif. That's Chelsea Green,
The reason why I say that, because last night at the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, there was a 6-woman tag, and she took I forget who it was, she took a brutal knee strike into the corner that was very similar to that. and that just happened like 12 hours ago as we recorded this. Oh my... Wow, how about that?
There you go. Yeah, it was gift incessantly for months, and just it is brutal. Absolutely. She cannons into her. It's something to check out. But yeah, it's a standard tag match. There's not a great deal to talk about. So we'll move on to the Wonder of Stardom #1 contendership 3-way with Saya Kamitani defeating Natsupoi and Himeka with a European clutch. Now, the video package, I thought, the video packages were great, I thought, on this show, as they have been all year. Whenever Stardom have done pay-per-views, I think they've done tremendously well with the video packages. And this one in particular does a fantastic job of outlining the two main plot points of this match. Saya's redemption, the arc of her wanting to go back and beat her mentor in Tam, and the ongoing bickering between Poi and Himeka. I thought it did a tremendous job, and I thought this match itself, though, it's not something we'll be talking about at the end of the year for, match of the year quality. I thought it did a fantastic job of continuing both those stories, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. You had 3-ways are tough to do. There's second 3-way on this show, but this one was completely different because, again, you had two stablemates, but you had two stablemates that were arguing. So right off the rip, they started going, and everybody had played their role perfectly in this match. And again, I thought the finish was really good with Saya getting the European clutch. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but Saya has been winning matches the past few shows by winning the European clutch, which I think is kind of a red herring in a good way, because I think that's going to be a massive, massive falsie with her match with Tam, and I think a lot of people are going to bite on it.
Wouldn't
and
surprise
I think this is a good way to I won my #1 contenders match with this move. I'm going to keep using it. However, I still have more in my arsenal. Obviously, the Phoenix Splash, all the other high flying stuff that she does, the Key Crusher thing that she calls. You would know better than me the name. But now she just has another way to beat you, which I'm a big fan of when wrestlers have more than one way of winning a match. It doesn't always have to be, the rock bottom or the stone cold stunner, to show the American fan over in here. I mean, now Saya has something different in her arsenal, a flash pin, which she used in this match. But this match was solid, and it told a whole bunch of different stories. So I think this was brilliant on more than one level.
Agreed massively. One of the big things about Saya is that she's constantly evolving, and her offense is constantly evolving, which means that, just before the Budokan show where she was fighting Utami for the red belt, she developed the springboard Hurricane Rana, which she then pinned Utami with in Korakuen. And then that led to one of the best near falls of the year at Budokan, where I'm still convinced it was a 3 count now, and we're in December. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a fantastic near fall with that, or even if that is the way she eventually goes on and wins. The chemistry between Natsupoi and Himeka was was fantastic, where we had the roller coaster of 1 minute them teaming together, and then the next minute Himika beheading Natsupoi with lariats. And there's one particular one as Natsupoi stares deeply into Himika's eyes as though to ask why are you doing this? And then Himika just absolutely thumping into her with a lariat. That was a personal highlight of mine. Up there with Natsupoi actually hitting Himika with an impressive German suplex. I will never not be impressed.
That bump was brutal. I mean, she's like twice her size. One, it just goes to show you how much give that Himika gave, and two, a lot of core strength there in Natsupoi. It seems like German suplexes and core suplexes seem to kind of be the one of the bread and butters of Stardom, which is one of the reasons why I like it. Hence, the All Japan stuff. So, but yeah, that suplex was absolutely brutal.
Was really, really was. And then I've got to mention this again. Natsupoi's fairy blink, that roll up attempt. It's very aptly named because genuinely I can't follow it. Like, I don't understand. Like, at one second she is on Saya's shoulders, and then the next second they're in a roll up position, and I've got no idea how they've got there. It's just so quick. It's unreal. Just always impresses me every time I see Natsupoi break it out. Obviously, this leads to the semi-main at Sumo Hall, which will be Tam versus that. Spoilers. Obviously, we all know by now that Tam gets past Mina. But yeah, I think it was done well. It's the right result. And we had some storyline progression. Where this goes with Himika and Natsupoi, I'm not sure. Obviously, Don and Del Mondo are yet, as they are, the second newest faction behind Cosmic Angels, they're yet to have any real faction shake-up of any kind or even any real feud of any substance. So this tension is intriguing. Himika showing a sign of friendship as she carries Natsupoi off from the ring only serves to further that story as well. So, who is going to go too far and strain that friendship past its breaking point is the question we're left with. I'd love to see some manner of shake-up, whether it's Himika or whether it's Natsupoi. And we've actually had a question on Twitter in regard to where we think or how we think it's going to end between Himika and Natsupoi, whether it's going to result in them dropping the artist belts or whether it's going to result in one of them leaving or who it's going to result in leaving. It's something that is very open-ended and something I'm very excited about. What about you?
Yeah. Again, you shake it up a little. A little bit ago, my prediction was not only does Momo join a Weta tie, but I think you're going to have a member maybe from DDM. And maybe this is the seeds planting that you'll get that maybe Himika will go over to DDM. So this way you kind of get another bruiser in the big heel faction. So, we'll find out. Stardom's been firing on all cylinders, so we will definitely watch, see what happens, and then we'll be back here to report it because that's what we do.
Absolutely. We move on then to, sorry, just lost my notes. There we go, the back. The high-speed championship match, Starlight Kid defeating Koguma with the Kid Clutch in 8 minutes and 32 seconds. I texted you, Matt, a couple of days ago, because I was rewatching this, and I said about the opening salvo of this match stands against any high-speed match I've ever seen. It's obviously fast, but, what high-speed match isn't. But the way this pair use not only the ring, but the outside, and manage to do it without breaking stride, it's truly phenomenal. It also goes to show just how much Koguma has raised a game in the last few months, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody in this roster, you can say, even from the top, from January 1 until December 12th today when we record this podcast, has improved in somewhat of their game. When I watch a match, like sometimes I'll put myself in it. Like, okay, if I'm doing this spot, is it this way? Do I go this way? What if I did this? And that's kind of sometimes the way I think and why I'm always taking notes, not only for if I'm doing a review of a podcast, but for my matches myself. I got done watching these first maybe 2 or 3 minutes and I was exhausted. And I do a lot of cardio. I was exhausted. Just watching these two, my lungs were burning. Again, not only using the ring, the inside of the ring, you're using the outside, which means you have to go up and down, essentially half a flight of stairs in a matter of a second, so you can get your timing. So not only was the pacing good, the timing was good, the psychology was good, everything, and then it just built. It just, I'm like, they could have ended it there. I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm fine. I'm good to go. And then this match is built. It just shows you how great Starlight Kid is overall in general. First of all, let's talk about her entrance. We talk about Utami's entrance. Starlight Kid's not too far away from Utami on the entrance. She comes out. She's got like 3 masks. She's got one in her hand, one on her head. Oh, no, she's got 2 on her head. The one she takes off, she's got 1 in her robe. Like her entrance, she has taken this heel role of Oedo Tai and just taken on a completely different level, which nobody was really sure how this was going to happen because she was so loved as Mayu's sidekicks. They're basically Batman and Robin. If you think about it, she was so loved as Mayu's sidekick in Stars. She was so lovable, and then she does this heel turn, and you're kind of just like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And here we are, just a couple of months left, and she might be the most overall improved wrestler, not only in Stardom, but probably just maybe in the entire wrestling business for what she's been able to do in this past 5 or 6 months. And I mean that as the complete package, not only in the ring, but what she's doing for her entrance, what she's doing in the Momo feud with these promos and how she's getting under Momo's skin and she's just pissing off Momo. I mean, she just is the complete package. And it's just the mid-card level of Stardom is so, I think in 6 months, they're ready to bang up onto the main event, and they already have so many good main eventers. I mean, this might be the most stacked roster in all of wrestling, other than the recent acquisitions from AEW. I mean, they're so stacked from the opening match into the main event.
Absolutely, completely agreed. After a few matches where the identity of the high speed title was forgotten in lieu of storytelling, you look at the Natsupoi match, which I wasn't a fan of on the basis that it wasn't a high-speed style. It just became another title match. And then you look at, the storytelling of the Momo match. It was refreshing to go back to, the standard high-speed style, if you want, especially as it's between 2 of the best in the company at this type of match. The opening and closing sequence are blink and you'll miss it. It's just, it's absolutely tremendous. Post-match, Azumi comes to the ring, basically requesting Kid put the belt on the line at Sumo Hall, which I'm very excited about because still to this day, the best high-speed championship match I've seen is Azumi versus Starlight Kid from last year. Koguma, apropos of absolute nothing, says that she wants to be in that match as well. I don't really understand why, but yeah, sure. Starlight Kid says, do you know what? With 3 people in, it's going to be the fastest high-speed match ever. And if that proves to be true, then I'm incredibly excited. Matt, are you disappointed that we don't get the one-on-one rematch between Azumi and Starlight? Or are you a man who's just like more speed, but the better?
2 different things. One is Starlight Kid's the heel here, so why would she take chances of now she has 2 different opponents? So I didn't understand that. It'd be one thing if she was the face or if Koguma won and this happens, like, yes, I'm going to be a fighting champion. So I don't understand that. I think maybe because they're trying to protect Starlight Kid, maybe Azumi pins Koguma. I think she eats the pin. I think she's going to eat the pin regardless. I think maybe they're just trying to protect Azumi and Starlight Kid. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's just me looking too much into it. Again, I particularly don't like 3-ways. But at the same point, after you watch this match, and then you throw Azumi in, who is one of our favorites, and you're basically doing a rematch, and you're throwing in another fantastic wrestler on an already stacked card. Hey, sure, why not? I'm already here. Sure, why not?
Yeah, completely. I agree. I mean, Koguma's done nothing but prove that she's more than gotten rid of that 6 years ring rust. So I'm more than happy to see another match. It's going to be a tremendous match. You're not going to have a match with Azumi, Koguma, and Starlight Kid in the ring and it not be good. As long as it adheres to the high-speed style, I'm more than happy. And I know I'm a bit of a stickler for that, but when you've got a belt that has such a stipulation and, has such a lineage of being high speed, I'm not a huge fan of when they try and, make it just an ordinary match because it sort of takes away from the identity of the title. But I'm a fan of this match. I'm also a fan of this next match, the SWA Undisputed World Women's Championship and 5-Star Grand Prix Right to Challenge Certificate UWF Rules match. Jesus, try saying that 5 times fast. Syuri the champion defeating Konami via knockout in 13 minutes and 6 seconds. I had no idea what UWF rules were before this match, or I had a very, very, very small knowledge of what was going on. This match, though, I don't know whether it was because it was so different. I was worried it was going to be boring because any sort of wrestling/shoot wrestling thing that I've seen, I haven't been a massive fan of. But this, loved it. Absolutely loved it, Matt.
Yeah, I mentioned how I'm a big fan of the All Japan style from the 90s. The Japanese, when done right, shoot style is probably right under there as my second favorite style. And I'm a huge fan of the UWF. Anytime I hear somebody's doing a UWF rules match and it's people that I know that can do it, I feel like I'm a 4-year-old that somebody said Santa Claus just walked by, or we're gonna have ice cream for dinner. And I knew these two. I'm a huge, massive fan of the UWF. Takada, Maeda, Minoru Suzuki when he had hair and he was handsome as hell. Funaki, Sakuraba, all those shoot style guys I absolutely love. And you have these two, probably the two best that are in the company to do it. Obviously, Shuri has the MMA, UFC background. Konami's no slouch as well. And I thought this was the best match of the card and probably top 5 or 6 Stardom match for me for the year from what I've seen. I still have a couple shows to go from beginning of the year that I haven't seen yet. But I thought this was tremendous. And again, you have a different style of match. So they both came out looking different. Konami came out in no shoes, how she used to, with the Muay Thai shorts, and Shuri came out, took the hood off, and cut her hair.
I love the fact, and it was a really subtle change, that if you look at pictures from when Shuri was doing her MMA stuff, Konami has the exact same hairstyle. She's braided the back of it exactly like Shuri used to, and it was just a subtle nod to her mentor. And, you know, ultimately, at the start of the year, one of the big trilogies we were looking forward to was Shuri versus Konami. Now, obviously, with the banger that was Utami versus Shuri, that's sort of been put on the back burner. But I was just the emotion of this match, the stiffness of the kicks, especially from Konami, who was throwing absolutely everything into those strikes, even more so than Shuri. And it's not often we can say someone outstrikes Shuri. But I was there for every moment of drama, every rope break, every down for 10 seconds. And with the whole, you know, knockout thing, the whole last man standing match, you run the risk of it being incredibly boring because the match has to stop. The referee has to count to 10, and it ruins the ebb and the flow of the match. But I thought here they combated that very, very, very well. Overall, didn't overstay its welcome. Its uniqueness had me intrigued from the get-go. It's one of those matches where the predictability of the result, to me, didn't hurt it. You know, you've got the trainee still not being able to overcome the mentor, even though they got closer than they did at Budokan. You know, at one point, Shuri only had 1 fall left, and I think Konami had 3 left.
Yeah.
So
she should have come from behind it almost if you're scoring it. Yeah.
Exactly. And the fact that Konami still let that fall, you know, slip between her fingers, it's a great, you know, it leaves it open for yet another match, which I'm very, very happy about.
Yeah. And I believe in Stardom history, this was the first shoot-style UWF match, if I'm correct.
I believe so. I believe someone on our Discord will tell us that we're wrong. But as far as I'm aware, it is the first UWF rules.
Hey, correct us if I'm wrong. That's what you're there for. And then we'll go and watch it.
Absolutely. But overall, another excellent match. And of these briefcase defenses that, you know, I said at the top of the show that I wasn't overly a fan of, this is my favourite. And I think it's my favourite simply because of the unique stipulation, the way it fits both women's character and their backstory as well, when you consider everything going into Budokan and everything coming out of Budokan as well.
Yeah, fantastic match. Loved it.
Moving on to the semi-main then, which saw the white belt match with Tam Nakano defeating Mina Shirakawa at 20... Oh, God, I've lost it. Never mind. She won with the Twilight Dream in 17 minutes and 12 seconds. There we are. Got there in the end. Again, another interesting video package with... We're sort of documenting Mina's descent into madness somewhat. All stemming from the back of Tam not acknowledging her, not giving her the respect she deserves, not acknowledging her growth. she broke out this, I think it's called the Glamorous Driver, Mina, just to try and impress Tam, and Tam completely no-selling it. And Mina just wants a reaction from Tam. She wants something from Tam. She wants acknowledgement from Tam. And the fact that Tam doesn't do it drives Mina to come out to the ring in a completely different getup. And the tears that she cries in the video package are embossed on her face with diamonds and the makeup, which I thought was a nice touch. What did you think of the match itself? What did you think about the transformation of Mina? What did you think of the overall impact on this match?
So it's great. Even from the opening video package, like you said before, you kind of had Mina going through a stroll wearing her Sunday's best and kind of just building everything up. And again, we talked about it earlier with the Unagi match. This is Tam taking care of her own. Unagi comes out and basically Stardom does such a good job at this, leveling up. As soon as she comes out, she's completely different look, completely different outfit, and you've seen this happen over the last, year and a half, 2 years. Look at everybody in Queen's Quest. Look how their outfits have changed. Even Mayu, when she was red belt champion, she'd wear nothing but the red gear, and then she changed her, she dyed her hair. Stardom does such a good job of freshening up their roster by giving them new looks, and again, leveling them up. And look at Mina has this completely new look. I'll be honest with you, Robert, about 2 or 3 hours after the show was over, I went on Twitter just to see what people were talking about. And my main thing is I wanted to see what people were talking about the UWF style match. And this was talked about more than anything, at least on my Twitter feed, than any result, just her entrance. Wow. Tam does. So this obviously got the play it wanted to, just from her entrance alone. Not the match, just the entrance alone. The match was really good. It got clunky towards the end, which I think Tam saved. But Tam, again, gave Mina so much. Right from the rip, the bell rings, she gets hit with the rolling elbow in the back of the head, and she takes the implant DDT. So we're working the neck, and then Tam does some stuff where she's not selling as the match is going, not selling because she doesn't want to give Mina that satisfaction. And then they basically kind of sit down and kind of give each other the Arisa kicks. And then as it's getting towards the end of the match, Mina goes to give, I guess, Tam a powerbomb, and she drops. I don't know if she got blown up or if she got hurt or she got tired or what happened, but Tam, being a professional, being so good, basically flicks her hair in front of her face and in Mina's face, and you can tell she's calling the next spot to her. And from there on out, Mina just seemed like she was distraught. Again, I don't know if she had a concussion or she got tired or blown up, but even when she was trying to pick Tam up for like a reverse DDT, she couldn't get her up all the way. And I think I just got to a point where Tam was like, I got it. Don't worry about it. I'll finish it. She hits the screwdriver, and she hits the Twilight Dream. And that was the finish. And a lot of people I talked to was like, oh, it got clunky at the end, which I see their point. But there was Tam, from someone that's been in the ring, that has been in this position before, both getting blown up towards the end of the match or having my opponent blown up, where you have to say, okay, let's take a breath, let's figure it out, let's get to the finish as quickly as possible, making the most sense as possible and safely as possible. And I thought Tam did a great job covering the back end 2 or 3 minutes of the match, which just goes to show how good Tam is in any situation.
Agreed. One thing that I've seen, I saw a criticism a couple of days ago, actually, about how Mina started the match, crazy and trying to elicit this reaction, and then sort of let it go throughout the match and then brought it back at the end. I disagree. I think it was there. I think it was there throughout. I think, she started the match so differently because she wanted the reaction out of Tam. Then she's getting upset and rash in the middle of the match because Tam is ignoring it. Tam is no-selling it. And then at the end, it's just exhaustion. It's, I've run out of ideas, which, she's the only one of these championship challengers that's embrace that ugly side that Tam spoke about when she fought Saya the first time. I'm willing to accept my ugly side in order to keep this belt, in order to do the hard yards, to keep the white belt, no matter what it takes. Are you willing to do that? Mina's the only one at the moment who's willing to do that. Was it an ugly finish? Yeah, fairly. I think the chances are something happened during that powerbomb attempt. Her mouth was bust open. The chances are she's a little bit woozy. But you can also say that her attempts at the glamorous driver, Mina, it was due to exhaustion. It was due to, both emotionally and physically, so it can play into the story. Is it Tam's best title defense? No. Did I prefer the Unagi defense? Yes. But at least Mina was trying to do something different. At least they were both trying to do something different rather than just a straight title defense ahead of what will be a very, very good straight title defense against Saya come Sumo Hall.
Yeah, agreed. I see your point. Again, this is one of those matches people like, people some people liked, some people didn't like. But again, I just thought that this showed Tam at a completely different level. Obviously, Mina with the leveling up of the costume change. But again, I just can't. I actually went back and watched this match twice. Just how she was able to cover up that tail end of the match just really shows just what a professional and how good Tam is.
Yeah. Completely agree. And it's elevated Mina and Unagi. I mean, I don't think they are on the level of the white belt yet, neither of them. But to give them that stage, especially on these B-show pay-per-views, to elevate them to that sort of stage, so that the spotlight is on them somewhat, it's done them a world of good.
Didn't hurt. Elevate both their games up, which in turn elevates Cosmic Angels up. So Tam knew what she was doing.
Exactly. We move to the main event then, which was the World of Stardom title match between Utami Hayashishita and Maika, with Utami winning with the BT bomb at 23 minutes and 43 seconds. Now, this is a very, very, very good match. I have no issue with this in the match. I will say, of their trilogy this year, this is possibly my least favourite, but we'll get into that in a minute. What about you, Matt? What did you think of this?
I thought it was good. Don't get me wrong. As far as the three of them, I don't know. I might put this one second. Obviously, the stakes are, higher because it's for the title, and we're getting towards the end of the year for the big Sumo House show. But I thought it was good. There was a lot of good storytelling. The dueling superplexes I thought was good. I thought that Mina started the match off really, really well with, I'm sorry, not Mina. Maika started the match really, really well with the chain wrestling and almost like a little bit of like catch can wrestling, where she was kind of hand fighting to try to get to the neck. And then eventually she did a fireman's roll into a double wrist lock, which I thought was basically showing that she's trying to get her in a submission. And ultimately, like her one big falsie, she got her in the Kata Hajime, the Taz mission, which I thought was really cool. I haven't seen that in a long, long time. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that Utami's clotheslines getting towards the end to chop down this big tree were just thunderous. Like she did almost like a Kenta Kobashi style burning lariat to get towards the end. I thought that was really good. And she hits the hijack bomb for the win. I thought it was a overall solid match. Shocker, right? From Utami.
In-ring quality wise, I love both Utami and Maika. There's no way this was going to disappoint. I think we talked about that sense of predictability, and this is the one that it hurt for me, because no matter how on top of the match Maika was getting, no matter the offense she was throwing, I knew that she wasn't going to win, and it took me out of it a little bit. However, what they did here was tremendous. That moment where Maika throws that last clothesline and literally just collapses into Utami, and Utami just stands there, looks in her face, and then beheads her with a lariat. Those German suplexes, one of which, Jesus Christ, Maika landed high on her head, and she just manages to get a hand on the ropes, and we get this brilliant camera angle of just the glassy-eyed expression of Maika, who has got no idea where she is at this point, and Utami just screaming at the sky. And then out of nowhere, Maika hits this drop kick, but hasn't got the energy to follow up. Like an adrenaline thing, just automatic response. Absolutely amazing. I love the callbacks to their 5-star Grand Prix match. The working of the arm of Utami. I just think it was hurt slightly by the predictability, and that, for me, is why it falls below their other two. Their 5-star match is one of my matches of the year. Such a fantastic limb match. Their 10th anniversary show from back in January, I liked a lot more than other people, simply because it elevated Micah. It elevated Micah to that level. It proved that Micah could go at that level. There was a little bit of story of the rashness of the rookie, if you will. Whereas here it felt very fillery without a story to supersede it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, you make good points there. I'm not too big on the predictability. Again, that really doesn't bother me. But then again, that just shows you why the 5-star and the Cinderella tournament are both so good, because it's just like, well, it's not for the title. So you can see the champion losing, match 1, match 4, match 5, a draw here or there. So you kind of maybe on the edge of your seat a little more. And New Japan does that, very well, very good as well. And All Japan in the 90s, I know I keep going to that drum, but those tournaments are when the title's not on the line. It makes the matches, the championship matches, the champions going in the match a little bit more vulnerable, because you don't know if they're going to lose. And if they lose, then it gives the person that beat them an opportunity at the title. And then, as we saw here, gives Micah the opportunity to main event, one of the shows.
Absolutely. And that brings to the end our Tokyo Super Wars review. We ended with Syuri coming out and basically saying, I don't want there to be a time limit on this match because I want there to be a winner, and Utami agreeing. So we're probably going to get a very long main event. I'd be surprised if it goes less than 40. Overall, though, this show, a solid show, a really solid show. I don't think there was a particularly bad match on the card. I think everyone who came into this show came out of it looking better. What about you? Overall thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, B+, solid show. Went by real quick. It's not one of these, 4-hour shows that kind of just drag. That Stardom is really good. They know that their talent that needs a little bit more work, they're not going to put them out there for 15 or 20 minutes. And then they put the longer the better wrestlers towards the end and give them more time so they can play out their stories. So, but going on to the Syuri comes out for the challenge. And did you see the announcement that Stardom made earlier today with that match?
Oh, I don't know. Did I? Go on. Do tell me.
Well, there's two things that they announced. Well, they announced the complete card for Sumo Hall, and they announced obviously this match is no time limit. But it's also the red belt versus the SWA belt, no time limit, winner take all.
Wow. Okay, that'd be interesting. That adds a wrinkle to it.
Yeah, so you kind of wonder what they're going to do there. And they also announced that it's going to be a tag match. Takumi Iroha will be teaming with Mayu, and they'll be taking on the team of Hazuki and Momo Watanabe, which is kind of weird because you have two members of Stars in there on opposite teams, and then you have Momo in there, and we don't know what's going to happen between the 18th and the 29th with Momo. But regardless, that's an awesome match.
That's a fantastic match. I've actually got the full card here, so I'll just quickly run it down. We open with a 5-way, Lady C versus Waka Tsukiyama versus Saki Kashima versus Fukigen Death versus Rina. We've then got the Future of Stardom Championship match between Ruaka and Hanan. The high-speed 3-way, which we spoke about earlier, Starlight Kid versus Koguma versus Azumi. We've then got a 6-woman tag, Donna Del Mondo, Maika, Himika, and Natsupoi versus the Cosmic Angel team of Mina, Unagi, and Mei Sakurai. The Konami, I keep saying Koguma, the Konami lever match versus Julia, which is also Julia's return match, unless, of course, she returns before this, which she hasn't at the moment. The tag match, which you mentioned, Kumiroha and Mayu versus Hazuki and Momo. And then, of course, the two title matches, Wonder of Stardom title match between Tam and Saya. And then the World of Stardom and SWA World Championship winner take all, no time limit match between Utami and Syuri. This, of course, will be Utami's 10th title defense, which at the moment she is third in the all-time list of successful title defenses, which I believe only puts her behind the reigns of Io Shirai in terms of successful defenses, which is fairly impressive when you think about it.
Two of them, that's crazy. 14 and 10, that's crazy.
Yep, it's bizarre. So if Utami wins this match, it puts her as joint second in successful title defenses, which, when you consider that when she first took the belt, some people thought she'd be a transitional champion, it'd be a quick flip-flop to Julia, and so on and so forth. I don't think anyone foresaw just how good this reign was going to be, and just how successful this reign was going to be.
Not only that, but she beat the icon of Stardom, which is, it could be good or it could be bad because one, you're basically kind of like what happened with Okada in 2012. You're beating the flag bearer when he beat Tanahashi. So it's like you're beating, our person. But at the same time, if it goes well, that's a heck of a way to start off your run. And obviously, look what happened to Okada. Look what, a year later where we're at with Utami. So obviously, Stardom saw something that a majority of people didn't see in Utami a year ago, and she's obviously filing on all cylinders. They gave her the ball, and she's scoring points.
God, yes, absolutely. You can't fault her for what she's done. She's just had fantastic title match after fantastic title match. However, I'm just going to end on one last announcement simply because I've just realised that both me and Matt said that we weren't going to go long, and we've gone nearly 2.5 hours. So I just want to quickly say that the Stardom Cast End of Year Awards will be making a reappearance at the end of this year. Obviously, with the last Stardom show being the 29th of December, it might be a little bit later. So what I was thinking was, currently, I'm going to take the polls and put them up on the 31st of December, New Year's Eve, and then that'll give everyone a week or so to vote, and we'll do the final awards on maybe the 9th of January. But again, TBD, but I just wanted to make everyone aware that they will be happening again this year. And overall, that is it. So thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast, Matt. We really do appreciate it. And thank you for agreeing to be the guest host. The actual co-host is what I meant, not the guest host. Sorry, ignore that. Co-host.
I'll take whatever I can get. Like I said, I'm not a greedy person. I'll take whatever I can. Thank you guys so much. And like I said, I'm still, sorry if I mispronounced any names and any of the moves. I'm doing a fairly good job of taking notes and refreshing myself. But I promise I will get better with each and every show. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And by all means, hit me up on social media and give me some feedback.
Where can they find you on social media, Matt?
Just on Twitter and Instagram, just search Matt Turner OF, and you'll see me there. Anything that anybody wants to talk about, whether it's wrestling, whether it's stuff to get in shape. You guys want to talk about comic books, you want to talk about loud music. I'm a big fan of heavy metal music. Anything that you want to talk about, you have any questions about Stardom or any feedback from this podcast, by all means, I'm open ears.
You can check out the podcast at the Stardom Cast on Twitter. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Some really good things coming in the next couple of weeks. We'll be back next Sunday having a look at Osaka Super Wars. It will have only been released the day before, but fingers crossed we'll at least have some thoughts on the card and things like that. And we'll also look ahead in a little bit more detail at the Sumo Hall show. Thank you so much for listening, guys. We'll talk to you guys again soon.